Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching first part of What If Kid Naruto Awaken an Unknown Power and was raised by Kyuubi and Kushina. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Not wasting no more time, let's start the story.
On October 10th, two Anbu guards were on the second day of their 2-week North Side border patrol mission on the Fire Country border. They were both roughly 6 feet tall and were wearing the standard black long-sleeved armored shirt, matching pants, black gloves, and a black cloak with a porcelain mask of a monkey and snake to conceal their identities. The Anbu wearing the snake mask exclaimed, "Hey Saru! What is it now, hubby?" Saru sighed. Hubby screamed, "It's just that I'm so damn bored, and it's only 7 a.m. SARU. His eyes were watering in an anime fashion, but the snake mask prevented you from seeing them. Hubby, you do know that you are standing a foot away from me, which means that you just screamed right into my ear." Saru growled dangerously. "Oh ha 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 ha, sorry about that." Hubby laughed embarrassment and scratched the back of his head. Saru simply stood there, his eyebrows twitching wildly and his forehead covered in anime-style tick marks. "How about we play a game of car, hubby? BOOMMM. What the hell was that, Saru?" they exclaimed as they heard a massive explosion and saw the dust cloud it produced a few miles away. "You think I know, hubby?" Then they heard it, an unearthly bone-chilling roar coming from the dust cloud the explosion brought. When they both pulled out their binoculars to get a better look, the sight sent a shiver down their spines. Suddenly, they were struck by a wave of killing intent like nothing they had ever experienced before. "Is that really the Saru?" Saru said, "Yes, it is, hubby. It's the Kyuubi no Kitsune," hardly audible above a whisper. "Saru, it's headed right to us, which means it's probably headed for the village." Hubby, stop panicking. Just summon a messenger bird, and give a scroll stating the situation, since it can reach Konoha quicker than us. "Right SS Saru," hubby stumbled out in terror. "Are you done yet, hubby? That fox is only about 2 miles away from us, so we have to leave right away," a slightly alarmed Saru yelled. Hubby exclaimed, "Just about finished," as he sent the bird to the Yondiami Hokage with the scroll fastened to its foot. Saru shouted, "Well then, let's get the hell out of here," as they both vanished into the thick forest of Fire Country. 7 p.m. at Konoha Hospital. As she lay in a hospital bed for the final 3 hours of labor, a fiery redhead with green eyes yelled, "This is all your fault, Minato." For the 5th time this time, however, the redhead decided to get physical, sitting up and repeatedly screaming, "You just had to want a kid," while strangling her husband like a rag doll. When the 4th Hokage was being throttled by his enraged wife, he was turning blue from lack of oxygen. "Kushina-chan, I can't breathe, and wasn't it your idea to have a kid?" he choked out. She screamed, "Don't change the subject," as she finally released him, tossing him against a wall a few inches from the door to his left. "I'm finally free, now all I have to do is take deep breaths in and out," Minato thought. "Ha, much better," the Hokage said as he rose to his feet. He was dressed in a typical Junin out outfit, which included a long-sleeved navy blue shirt, matching pants, brown vest, a Konoha headband on his forehead, ninja-style sandals, and a custom white trench coat with flames at the bottom. He was approximately 5 feet 11 with messy blonde hair and piercing blue eyes. Kushina exclaimed, "Oh Minato-kun," in a sing-song voice that caused him to perspire. Two people entered at that point. One was about 6 feet 1 or 6 feet 2 and in his late 30s. He had long white spiky hair in a ponytail, gray pants, a gray kimono top, a red vest, wooden sandals, and red triangles running from the bottom of his eyes to just past half of his cheek. He also had a headband on his forehead that bore the kanji for oil. The other one, who was roughly 5 feet 7 and 15 or 16 years old, had spiky silver hair that defied gravity, a navy blue mask that extended from the base of his neck to halfway past his nose, and a leaf headband covering his left eye. He was also dressed in the same Junin out outfit as Minato, with the exception of a white trench coat with flames at the bottom. Hey, looks like I'm saved," Minato thought, grinning evilly at his sensei and pupil. The younger, shorter Kakashi and the older, taller Jiraiya began to perspire and back away when they saw Minato smiling evilly at them. They were preparing to flee, afraid to find out what kind of crazy and psychotic plans their Hokage had in store for them, but they were too slow, and Minato grabbed both of them by the collars. After hearing that, Jiraiya and Kakashi turned around and gazed at Minato with interest. "Ah, Jiraiya and Kakashi, just the two I wanted for this special mission." "So what's the mission, brat?" Jiraiya's semi-deep voice said. A bored voice called out, "Yes, what is the mission, sensei?" and it was Hitaki Kakashi. "Well, you two both know that there have been both S-ranked, and even a handful of SS-ranked missions, correct?" Minato said. Glancing at his two friends intently, they simply nodded and raised an eyebrow at him. Well, I'm giving you both the chance to make history, by assigning you both the first, SSS-ranked mission ever in all of the great ninja villages. When Jiraiya and Kakashi heard this news, their eyes widened like saucers, and Kakashi thought, I'll go down in history. I'll become even more famous, and beautiful women love famous guys, Jiraiya concluded as she blushed and giggled in a strange way. Both of them exclaimed, so what's the mission? When they both nodded, Minato thought, laughing hysterically in his head, you both understand that this mission is harder than anything you've ever done before, suckers. As he hurried out of the room using Hirishin no Jutsu, Minato said in a hurried voice, the mission is, to stay with Kushina until he get back, which means to stay with Kushina until I get back. When they finally understood what Minato had said a few seconds after she had left, they both yelled, damn you Minato, at once. Oh boys, Kushina said in that hauntingly endearing voice that made Jiraiya and Kakashi very happy. Stuttering, ya w what is I it, Kakashi said. Kushina smiled and said, oh nothing, just could you two come over here for a sec. As they stood where she claimed to have done, she grabbed them both by the neck and began strangling them while swinging them around and yelling, where is Minato? At the same time. The phrase, we don't know, repeatedly when a messenger bird landed on his shoulder, Minato thought, ah safe at last, what's this? He took the message and started reading. Hokage-sama, this is from Habi and Saru, North Side Border Patrol Team, you must prepare the village for battle because the Kyuubi is coming, and will be there by midnight. Minato thought, oh no, his eyes wide open, his face etched with fear. I must hurry, it's already 8 o'clock which gives me. And the village only 4 hours to prepare, and I already know what I must do. And I'm sorry my son, but this creature cannot be defeated only, sealed. Moaned Minato, and then his resolve grew stronger when he realized. I'm the Hokage first and a father second, and so to protect this village I will have to seal the fox spirit inside you. And seal away your bloodline trait from your mother's side, because with that power you could become a threat to the village since you were the first 7th generation member of the Kuchiki clan. Which means you have powers far beyond the normal person, and so if the fox corrupts you the village won't stand a chance against you, so I have no choice but to seal your powers away. It was steely resolve. What a bastard, I know. 12 p.m. outside the walls of Konoha some random chunin screamed, the Kyuubi breaking through our defenses, we need the 4th Hokage now, arg. Just before he was struck by a blast of Kyuubi's pure chakra, which instantly vaporized him along with another 2 chunin and 1 junin. Hospital. 12:10 p.m. A frantic Kushina yelled, no Minato, I won't let you do this to our son. As Minato attempted to remove his son Naruto in order to get ready for the sealing. I hope you burn in the Shinigami's stomach for all eternity Minato Namikaze, you traitor. Jiraiya held Naruto down as Minato finally removed him from Kushina. That was the last thing the Yondaime Hokage heard said to him, and he was moved to tears because he knew how much his wife hated him at the moment. I'm sorry, Kushina and Naruto, he said, acknowledging his son. An old man wearing a long-sleeved shirt and black battle-ready pants, metal guards on his forearm, and a helmet bearing the Konoha symbol asked, are you sure this is the only way Minato? Yes, it is Sandaime-sama. The 4th person replied. The 3rd person sighed and said, very well then, let's get started. Hi, answered the Yondaime. Kushina was sobbing as she lay in bed, too tired to move, but she understood why. She was dying from the complications of childbirth. Minato, you fool. I don't despise you right now because you're going to seal the fox spirit into our son, but because you're taking away his birthright, his bloodline ability, and since he is the last of my clan, if you seal it away the clan will be lost. The most powerful clan will truly be lost forever. Wait. The Kyuubi can help me. The Kuchiki are direct descendants of the fox spirit, so if I concentrate I should be able to establish a mental link with him, since he is close. I got it. 12:40 p.m. outside the walls of Konoha when the Yondaime reached the battlefield, they were sanding Gamabunta's head, the boss toad. Foolish human, what can you do? Against me Kyuubi no Kitsune, king of all demons. H-A-A-H-A-A-H-A-A-H-A-A. The Yondaime called out, I can do this Shikai Fuin no Jutsu, and started to seal the fox spirit into the sobbing baby boy with the blue eyes, blonde hair, and now whiskered cheeks. The Kyuubi yelled, damn you Yondaime Hokage, as its final soul was imprisoned inside Naruto. Gamabunta exhaled in a cloud of smoke after the sealing, and the 4th Hokage landed on the ground with Naruto firmly in his grasp. Jiraiya arrived to check on the 4th Hokage, but as they arrived, everyone herded him and he said, treat Naruto Uzumaki as a hero, because he is the reason you are still alive today. The Yondiami Hokage said this before he fell to the ground without moving. With the exception of Sarutobi and Jiraiya, who already knew the cost of the jutsu he used, all of the ninja hurried to their fallen hero's side to investigate the situation. They simply stood there, staring between Naruto and their fallen hero with a sad face. The mindscape of Naruto. Where am I? Kushina thought as she got up and rubbed her head after waking up in a sewer with dim lighting on the ceiling. This must be where Kyuubi-sama was sealed, but I wonder where he is. RRRRAHHHHH. WHO is there? Kushina heard a giant roar and the question came from the hallway to her left. She followed the path she thought the roar was coming from until she reached a cage with a giant red fox with 9 tails thrashing around it. In the middle of the cage was a kanji for seal. Kushina yelled, "Kyuubi-sama, I need your assistance," in an attempt to attract the fox's attention. The 9-tailed fox, upset that a mere human would dare ask him for a favor, yelled, "A human like you asks me for a favor, ha 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 ha. Why should I help you?" Kushina stated, "This is why Kyuubi-sama," as she lowered the right side of her silver hospital gown slightly less than halfway past her right breast to reveal a tiny black fox tattoo on her chest that symbolized her affiliation with the 9-tailed fox and her status as a member of the Kuchiki clan. Kyuubi exclaimed in surprise, "That mark? But I thought that clan was destroyed about 50 years ago, along with Whirlpool Country by the Haccchi Mata no Orrochi, 8-tailed snake. My mother was the last survivor, and gave birth to me about 25 years later and died when I was only 16, leaving me as the only survivor, but before she died she told me about my clan, and how powerful my child would be since he would be the 7th generation, but I died during childbirth, and used what little chakra I had left to create an anchoring point in my son's body, so my soul wouldn't move on." Now that he was settled in, Kyuubi said calmly, "Wait a minute, then that means we are in your son's body, which means I'm sealed in one of my own descendants." He had a big foxy grin that only he could pull off when he realized what he could do while sealed inside the body of his own descendant. He was sealed in his own blood and flesh. He is also the first 7th generation Kuchiki to be born, and as you know, Kyuubi-sama, the 7th generation, is said to hold the purest form of the clan's bloodline as well as the purest form of your blood, Kushina said as he pointed to Kyuubi. In a voice filled with excitement and surprise at this child's potential, Kyuubi exclaimed, "Then that means he has my blood. Pure fox demand blood flowing through his veins. If I activate that dormant blood, he will turn into a fox demon with the potential to take my place as the next 9-tailed fox demon since I'm sealed away if he is properly trained." Kushina smiled as she considered how powerful her son would be once the suppression seal was removed. "Correct, Kyuubi-sama. Now we have 5 years and 364 days before the suppression seal on Naruto becomes permanent, and his powers are locked away forever, so shall we get started on figuring out how to break it, Kyuubi-sama?" she said. The Demon Lord exclaimed, "Yes, let the return of the Kuchiki clan begin." 130 council chambers because of the incessant shouting and arguing about a certain Naruto Uzumaki. At least they believed that to be his last name. The council was in a frenzy. With icy eyes and steely resolve, the 3rd Sandaime Hokage screamed to the civilian portion of the council, "No, we will not kill the child, but we will honor the Yondiami's last wish. And he will not be turned into a weapon, Danzo." "If I may, Hokage-sama," the Hokage said. "Yes, what is it, Hiyashi-san?" As he turned to face a man in his late 20s with long black hair, a gray and white kimono, and pale, pupilless eyes. "I just wanted to propose, we make it a S-class secret about the child's condition, and that we make it punishable by death if his condition is ever spoken openly, or to those that don't know of it," said Hiyashi without any emotion. The old Hokage yelled, "You all heard what Hiyashi said, now that will be the law concerning Naruto Uzumaki for now on." Dismissed. Before he stood up and departed, leaving the council yelling protests and glaring daggers at Hiyashi for creating the law. Hiyashi only turned to the council and asked, "Did I do something wrong?" before getting up and walking away. October 10th was both the 5th anniversary of the death of the Kyuubi no Kitsune by the Yondiami Hokage, the hero of the Leaf Village, and little Naruto Uzumaki's 5th birthday. Fortunately for Naruto, he only has to worry about the cold stares and whispers that he usually receives because on his 1st birthday, a Chunin tried to finish what the Yondiami started, and the Hokage made fun of him. Flashback. The crazed Chunin exclaimed, "It's time to finish what the Yondiami started, demon." He was clearly insane based on the insane expression on his face as he eyed the child just as he was about to kill the 1-year-old Naruto. The 3rd Hokage rushed in due to the odd chakra signature emanating from Naruto's room in the Hokage's building. The following day, a battered and visibly tortured Chunin sat in the center of the village with the Hokage standing over him. Now people of Konoha, this Chunin tried to kill one Naruto Uzumaki, the child the Yondaime Hokage asked you all to treat as a hero, and now to make sure this never happens again, the Hokage said, pausing briefly to fortify his resolve before publicly executing the Chunin. The village erupted in a series of gasps as everyone saw their gentle and elderly Hokage kill one of the village's ninja. As the elderly Hokage said, now if anyone else ever harms this child or treats him unjustly, you will be dealt with severely. No one has ever dared to hurt Naruto or treat him unfairly since that day out of fear of their Hokage's wrath. Instead, they have chosen to avoid him and give him icy glares whenever they see him. Final flashback today. Naruto was strolling through the village in his trademark orange jumpsuit with blue accents on top. His blonde hair was more disheveled than ever, and his blue eyes were scanning the surroundings. A day ago, he asked Naruto to visit him as a birthday present, so he was on his way to see the Hokage. Naruto said to the secretary, "Pardon me, Kaya-chan, but may I go and see the Hokage?" The girl was a teenager, perhaps 18 or 19, with a good figure, light blue long hair, green eyes, a height of 5 feet 7, and at least small C-cup breasts. "Of course can Naruto-kun," Kaya said, grinning at Naruto from the other side of her desk. "Thanks Kaya-chan," Naruto said with a big foxy grin. "It's no big deal, Naruto-kun, and you can go see the Hokage now if you want to," Kaya replied, grinning back at Naruto. However, when he heard voices coming from the room, he stopped at the door and put his ear to the door to better hear them. The interior of the Hokage's office. "Hi Hokage-sama, the whispers I've heard from the villagers and ninja confirm my suspicions about what may happen to the Yondaime's legacy tonight," the Sarutobi said to a dog-masked Danbu. "Inu, are you sure you're correct about this little group you told me about?" the Hokage asked. The old Hokage simply sighed and leaned back into his large, comfortable chair. "Very well then Inu, what I want you to do is take Yugao as your partner and watch over him until tomorrow, and if anyone does attack him you are to kill them, because I will not have people walk over me and my laws, thinking that there is no consequence. Understood?" Knowing that he was going to have a long night, Inu nodded and bowed before vanishing into the darkness. The Hokage simply sighed as the Anbu left, then grinned and turned to face the door, saying, "I know you're there, Naruto, so you might as well come on out now." Laughing and scratching his head in embarrassment at being caught, Naruto opened the door and turned to face the Hokage. As Naruto ran up to the Hokage's desk, he practically yelled, "Oji-san, what did you get me?" and jumped up and down with excitement. The Hokage laughed and said, "Calm down, Naruto, and I'll tell you what I got you in return." The Hokage started to speak as Naruto settled down and sat down in one of the chairs, but Naruto collapsed to the ground, clutching his stomach in agony, sobbing softly, and biting his tongue to keep from yelling. "Beyond the seal," a terrified Kushina exclaimed, "why didn't it work Kyuubi-sama?" She was dressed in a simple blue kimono covered in sakura petals and appeared exactly like she had when she was alive, save for her hair turning pink after the first year for no apparent reason. Kushina simply thought it was a side effect of being inside Naruto. I'm curious as to why it didn't work as well, Kushina." An irritated Kushina asked, "Do you think we could have missed something important on the suppression seal, Kyuubi-sama?" "No, we did everything right, unless," Kyuubi remarked, returning to take another look at the seal. The Kyuubi sighed and then gave a slight growl at the end. Just as I thought HHAAA. You just had to make it difficult Yondaime GGGGRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRR observing the fox's irritated expression. It would seem that I have figured out the problem. Oh, and what is it? It would seem that for us to be able to break the seal it will have to be weakened, and for that to happen Naruto must subconsciously call on his bloodline during a situation where he thinks his life is in danger, replied Kyuubi. And how are we supposed to do that, Kyuubi-sama? Kushina simply raised an eyebrow at that. With a cunning smile, Kyuubi added, don't tell me you forgot what the child heard the Hokage and the Anbu member talking about, to his friend. So all we have to do is to get Naruto to run into the mob that's after him, and then we just sit back and wait for his basic survival instincts to kick in and let it try to awaken Naruto's bloodline, and while the seal is being weakened because of that we can add the extra push, and finally break the seal. Kushina said with a sly smile of her own as she realized what Kyuubi was saying. Precisely, Kushina, but until that time comes we will just sit back and wait patiently. After nodding, Kushina left to find something to keep herself busy in Naruto's mindscape until Kyuubi and she were prepared to break the seal. Returning with the Hokage and Naruto, the third Hokage exclaimed, Naruto, are you okay? As he hurried to the young child's side, however, as soon as he saw the seal on Naruto's stomach turning red and pulsing from a tiny spot where his shirt lifted up, from when he fell off the chair, his expression swiftly changed to one of horror and bewilderment. Naruto began to feel better when the seal said that things would return to normal. He stood up and asked the third Hokage, "What happened to me just now, Oji-san?" The Hokage simply scowled and thought, "I'm wondering the same thing, Naruto." At the end, Sarutobi smiled and said, "I don't know, Naruto, but whatever it was seems to have passed now. How about we get back to what I got you for your birthday?" That made Naruto smile and begin to jump up and down, shouting with excitement, "What did you get me?" "Settle down, Naruto," the Hokage said with a laugh. After Naruto calmed down, the Hokage went on, "So Naruto, first off I enrolled you into the Ninja Academy, got you your own apartment, and this," the Hokage said, giving Naruto a check for $1,000, "I'm going to use US money to make this easier. Now Naruto, for now on I will be putting a weekly allowance of $600 into your savings account that I created for you at the National Ninja Bank, as well as pay the monthly bill for the apartment, so you won't have to worry about doing that," the Hokage said as he lit his pipe. The thought of finally leaving the orphanage made Naruto's eyes light up. Although the matrons weren't particularly cruel to him, they weren't kind either. They mostly chose to ignore him, occasionally blaming him for actions taken by other kids and refusing to feed him as a form of discipline. He also couldn't understand why they and other people treated him differently than other kids, and he occasionally received icy looks. Finally, Naruto's face took on an expression of curiosity as he gazed at the Hokage and pondered. Why did Oji-san give me $1,000 when he said I would get an allowance of $600? As the elderly Hokage grinned and said, "I see you're wondering why I gave you $1,000 instead of the $600 like I said earlier, correct?" Naruto was only able to nod in confusion. Naruto simply nodded in response, grinning broadly. "Well, Naruto, I gave you the extra money as part of your birthday present for you to be able to buy whatever you want, but remember you still need to buy food and other essentials now, so don't waste the money, okay?" the Hokage said. The mindscape of Naruto with her eye twitching angrily, Kushina questioned Kyuubi, Kyuubi-sama, what kind of an idiot gives a 5-year-old boy an apartment then tells him to live on his own? "I have no idea, Kushina," Kyuubi said, his perspiration dropping at such a direct question. Returning to Naruto as the Hokage pondered, "I wonder who that letter really is from. Oh, I almost got here, which is where the apartment is, Naruto, and also a letter for you that I received in the mail stating it was to be given to you, and because of the blood seal on it only you can open it." Naruto waved goodbye to the Hokage as he left the room to find his new apartment, home, after taking the letter and paper that contained the address and key to his new apartment. Upon arriving at his apartment complex, Naruto discovered that he was in a pleasant, upper-middle-class neighborhood. Here we go, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. When he found his new apartment, Naruto opened the door and saw that it was a nice one-bedroom apartment with a kitchen and a table in the middle, a living room with a couch and a 40-inch flat-screen TV that was provided by the Hokage, and a coffee table in front of the couch, a nice-sized bathroom, and a large bedroom with a dresser and a 32-inch TV on a stand on the wall in front of the bed, he said. "Wow, what a lovely place, and it's MINNEYAHH. At the end," Naruto exclaimed with excitement. Naruto muttered as he sat down on the couch and opened the letter. So I should probably look at that letter now. "Hi Naruto, I'd like to meet you today at 5 to 3 p.m. at Training Ground 7 to give you your birthday present and share something you'll find fascinating. I wonder if I should go and who it is from." As he left his apartment, Naruto thought aloud. "Well, it's already 5, so I guess I might as well get going so I can meet this guy." As he went through the streets, he noticed that the villagers were staring at him strangely, not with the usual icy glares, but with a grin that told him they had something terrible planned for him. This was really starting to frighten him, so he walked more quickly. "I've been looking around here for 10 minutes or so. Is this guy going to show up or what?" While pacing Training Ground 7, Naruto whimpered until someone snatched his shoulder and said, "Hello Naruto," in a remarkably emotionless voice, causing Naruto to jump with surprise. Naruto turned to see a 13-year-old boy with black eyes and bangs on the sides of his face wearing an Anbu uniform. "Who the hell are you?" Naruto stammered as he spoke to the stranger. "I am Itachi Uchiha, and my name is your older brother," stated Itachi with a brief pause. Naruto was so shocked after hearing this he just stood there gaping at his supposed older brother, and after getting over the shock some he was able to stutter out, "Ho how?" As Itachi held up a large stick, Naruto perspired and thought, "So that's why I woke up in the forest at night 2 weeks ago, and where the hell did he get that stick from? Let me explain." 2 weeks ago I saw you and for some reason my gut said we were related, so I snuck up behind you and knocked you out with this and took a blood sample. You could have simply requested a blood sample instead of knocking me out. Was that really necessary? Naruto asked. Itachi smirked and said, now where would the fun in that be? While Naruto simply shivered and his eyes twitched. Now let's get back to what we were discussing. Naruto, after a week of testing using both the blood sample they took from me and the one I gave them, the hospital confirmed that we had the same mother but different fathers. I then asked my father for clarification and learned the truth. Flashback. Would you mind giving me an explanation, father? I recently learned that I have a younger brother named Naruto Uzumaki in their living room. Sometime in the middle of the night, Itachi spoke to his father in a chilly tone. To which Fugaku, Uchiha, replied with a slight smile, I have no idea what you're talking about, Itachi. Itachi then turned on his Sharingan and, before anyone could see, pinned his father to the wall while uttering the words, tell me everything. Well, to put it simply, a woman named Kushina Kuchiki came to this village 13 years ago under the alias of Kushina Uzumaki, but I knew who she really was and her powerful bloodline, so I got her drunk and implanted one of her eggs into my wife Makoto while she was also under powerful sleeping genjutsu. Later, she became pregnant with you, and everyone assumed it was hers, but it was actually Kushina Kuchiki's child. My wife Makoto was merely a means of carrying you while you were growing in her womb. But for some reason her bloodline and the Kuchiki bloodline didn't fuse like I hoped, Fugaku concluded, his eyes shining crazily. But as you grew, I found out that you may not have received the Kuchiki bloodline, but your Uchiha bloodline was stronger than normal, so I decided that my little experiment wasn't a complete failure, he said, grinning. Itachi asked with genuine interest in the back of his voice, so why didn't you do the same with Sasuke then? Fugaku was simply grinning as she said, I would have, but she was involved with the 4th Hokage, and doing something like that again to the 4th Hokage's girl would have been suicide. Itachi pressed harder on his father's throat and asked, then what happened to mine and Naruto's mother? She died giving birth to Naruto because of complications during childbirth, Fugaku grunted in response. I see, Itachi said, tossing his father against the wall across from him and remarking, you truly are a despicable human being, father, before leaving the room. Final flashback. Itachi simply nodded in agreement as Naruto summarized his remarks. So we're half-brothers, and our mother was Kushina Kuchiki, the last member of some forgotten clan with an unknown but powerful bloodline, and my father was the Yondaime and I have some unknown bloodline, and you basically have a super-powered version of the Uchiha bloodline, Naruto said in an odd voice, aware that his parents were no longer with him. So Nii-san, what do we do now? Asked Naruto as he glanced up at Itachi and wiped away the stray tears. Itachi said, well, little brother, we get to know each other better, before bending over and unexpectedly embracing Naruto. Naruto, who was not accustomed to physical contact, initially tensed up but eventually relaxed and felt at ease in his big brother's arms. But when Itachi felt someone in the trees behind them displaying murderous intent, their brief moment was cut short. Itachi got up and remarked, Naruto, get behind me, now who's ever there, come out now. Following Itachi's statement, 8 individuals emerged from the trees. As he examined his potential opponents, Itachi questioned, so 3 civilians, 2 Chunin, 2 Uchiha Junin, and 1 Anbu, so what are you all doing here? Well, Itachi, the Anbu said, taking off his face to reveal, Shisui. Itachi's eyes widened a little. Yes, Itachi, it's me now, step aside so we can finish off that demon like your father Fugaku-sama asked us to. Itachi said, getting ready for a fight, well, I can't let you do that, my friend. Shisui sighed and said, I was afraid you'd say something like that. So in that case you 2 Junin are with me to help take down Itachi and the rest of you kill the demon. Shisui hurried Itachi and the other 2 Uchiha allies with his Sharingan activated, while the others hurried Naruto. Inside the seal, the Kuchiki clan's comeback shall begin with this small push. Laughed hysterically and yelled out the Kyuubi. I'll take care of them, run Naruto, Itachi remarked as he turned to face Naruto. But Nii-san, easy run Naruto, Itachi shot Naruto a glare. All right, Naruto shouted as he took off, go after him, shouted Shisui. I don't believe that, Itachi shouted, drawing his katana and charging at the 2 Chunin and 3 bystanders, but Shisui's katana stopped him. You're not going anywhere, Itachi, Shisui smirked malevolently. When you need Naruto's Anbu guards, where in the world are they? With a growl, Itachi thought. Using the Anbu. When I left you alone to grab lunch, Kakashi, you simply had to doze off while watching Naruto. As she and Inu searched the village for Naruto, Yugao screamed angrily and a tick mark appeared on her head. Kakashi shrugged and said, "What can I say, it was just time for my afternoon nap," while Yugao simply perspired at his easygoing demeanor. Using Naruto. "We're catching up to you, demon, and we're going to kill you when we do," one of the Chunin yelled out as he threw a kunai at Naruto, striking him in the shoulder, causing Naruto to scream in agony. Beyond the seal. "The seal will become weak enough for us to destroy it with just one more push, Kushina." Kushina simply stood there thinking, "Soon my son, you will regain your birthright," as Kyuubi grinned and yelled at her. With Itachi, Shisui yelled, "Dragon Fire Jutsu," as he blasted Itachi, only to discover that it was only a shadow clone. He then turned around quickly after hearing his two comrades' agonized cries as Itachi's sword stabbed one of them through the stomach, and the other's head was rolling on the grass just before it came to a stop. Shisui grinned and remarked, "So now it's just you and me, huh, Itachi?" They hurried past each other, Shisui with his kunai and Itachi with his sword. "Hi, my old friend," Itachi said. Shisui stepped aside and released a fireball jutsu as Itachi swung his sword straight down. Itachi avoided it by posing as a shadow clone and appearing on Shisui's left side. He then gave him a right hook that sent him tumbling 4 yards across the training ground and stopping when he struck a tree with a crunch and a scream. When Itachi and Shisui turned around, they saw a pillar of swirling, unnatural red chakra filled with malice and bloodlust, but it was being countered by a calm, powerful, but also unnatural ghostly white chakra. Itachi said, "I am sorry, but for attempting to murder Naruto Uzumaki, my little brother, I will have to kill you now," in an emotionless voice that also had a hint of sadness because he knew he was about to kill his best friend, but he stopped abruptly when he felt a huge burst of chakra coming from where Naruto and the others ran off to. Using the Anbu. "Well, it looks like we found Naruto," said Kakashi, grinning, "but his Anbu mask prevented you from seeing it." "No shit, you idiot. I'm willing to wager that we and the other elemental nations have just discovered Naruto." With an irritated look on her face and a tick mark on her head that was hidden by her Anbu cat mask, Yugao answered. Using Naruto. "I've got you, Fox," Chunin shouted as he threw Naruto to the ground. "Give me a break," yelled out Naruto as he flailed wildly and was picked up by the collar by the Chunin. 3 civilians and the other Chunin gathered around him to watch the Chunin kill Naruto. "Well, Fox, it appears that this is the end for you when you finally meet him. Say hello to him on my behalf," yelled out the Chunin, as he started to thrust a kunai into Naruto's heart while all Naruto was thinking was, "I don't want to die." Beyond the seal now, while his will to live is strongest, the seal is at its weakest, so we need to flood it with our chakra right away, Kyuubi exclaimed in a hurried, frantic, and ecstatic voice. Using Naruto, the chakra that emanated from Naruto became a column of spiraling, bloodlusting, and malicious red chakra along with calm and controlled ghostly white chakra that seemed to be fighting for dominance. The Chunin and his friends were sent reeling at least 3 yards away when the kunai was less than an inch from piercing Naruto's heart. The only thing the people who had just attempted to kill Naruto could do was sit back and watch this amazing phenomenon. Beyond the seal, Naruto woke up in a grassy field with cherry trees and a bright sun in a clear sky. "Where am I?" he asked blearily. "You're in your mindscape, Naruto," a young woman with pink hair, green eyes, a blue kimono covered in cherry blossoms, C-cup breasts, and a height of roughly 5 feet 10 inches said. "What do you mean by being in my mindscape, and who are you?" Naruto questioned, looking perplexed. A horse-sized 9-tailed fox suddenly materialized behind Naruto, causing him to jump and then collapse on his butt from the shock. "What she means, Naruto, is that we are inside your mind, and in your mind time stops in the outside world. But let's hurry, shall we?" she said. "So we were right, Kyuubi-sama, when we thought that we would probably become Zanbaku spirits for Naruto, which would mean you're free from the seal," Kushina said, nodding wisely while crossing her arms and closing her eyes. According to Kyuubi, who smiled, "Well, more or less, considering I may be free of the seal, and have more space and better scenery, but now I'm even more connected to Naruto than I was before. The same goes for you as well, Kushina." Kushina simply shrugged and remarked, "Well, it's not like I was going anywhere anyway." "So true," Kyuubi said, chuckling a little. "What on earth is happening here?" Naruto yelled, growing irritated at being so obviously excluded. As Kushina yelled, "Watch your language, young man," both Kyuubi and Naruto winced at the volume. Kyuubi then responded, "Oh sorry, I forgot you were there for a second, brat," laughing nervously, which only caused Naruto to perspire. "Now, brat, pay close attention because I'm going to explain everything to you once. I don't like to repeat myself or be interrupted, so if you ask me to do so, I'll start biting your leg with my incredibly big, sharp teeth. Do you get the idea?" Naruto saluted and said, "Whatever you say, crazy mutated bunny." And then there was a brief silence between the three until Kushina erupted in laughter and began rolling around the grass, yelling, "Forgive me Kyuubi-sama, but TS just too funny." Kyuubi then began yelling, "I am a fox, not a muted bunny, you know it." When everyone had calmed down, Kyuubi coughed to get everyone's attention. "Now, as I was saying, Naruto 5 years ago, I the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the strongest, and most fabulous, and elegant and—" "Excuse me Kyuubi-sama, but aren't you getting off topic?" Kushina replied with a drop of sweat. "Oh, I apologize," Kyuubi said with embarrassment. "Now, as I was saying, I attacked Konoha 5 years ago, as you know, but that damn Yondiami didn't kill me, he only sealed me into his own son, and the son of the women behind you just minutes after you were born." Kyuubi said. Naruto's eyes widened a little as he turned to face his mother and uttered the barely audible words, "You're my Ka-san." However, Itachi ni-san explained that our mother passed away while giving birth to me. With a raised eyebrow and an inquisitive expression, Kushina said, "That's right Naruto, I'm your Ka-san," while kneeling down and hugging Naruto, who began to cry with joy at finally being able to meet his Ka-san. However, after a few seconds, Kushina pulled Naruto slightly away and asked, "What do you mean your brother told you that your mother was dead, since I only had you Naruto?" When Naruto finished telling her what Itachi had told him, Kushina was reflecting. "Fugaku Uchiha must be killed." Kushina then grinned and said to Naruto, "The reason your brother Itachi doesn't have your bloodline is because the Kuchiki bloodline can't mix with another bloodline. So when a Kuchiki has a child with someone who has a bloodline, the child won't get the Kuchiki bloodline, but the bloodline ability the child receives from his non-Kuchiki parent will be significantly increased in power. But don't ask me why Naruto," she said, and Naruto simply stood there and listened before responding, "Ka-san, how did you get inside of me?" Before Kushina could respond, Kyuubi cut him off. "End the disruptions," Kyuubi yelled, drawing the attention of the other two occupants. "Returning to what I was saying, he not only sealed me into you but also sealed away your birthright, your bloodline limit, and the bloodline limit of the Kuchiki clan because, as a 7th generation member, you have the potential to access the clan's hidden abilities, which give you power far beyond that of a normal human. The Yondiame feared that you might be corrupted by me, so he sealed those powers away to protect the village he loved more than his wife and newborn son," Kyuubi said. "So I have a bloodline, but my two-san sealed it away because he cared about the village more than me, and sealed the Kyuubi into me, and village hates for holding it," shouted Naruto. "That's right Naruto, your father betrayed both of us, the moment he took you from me and sealed your powers away, and I hate him for doing it," Kushina replied. "Okay people, our time is growing short, so let's wrap this up. So Naruto, I and your mother have been trying to break the seal on you for the last 5 years, because within 6 years the seal would have become permanent, and today, we succeeded," Kyuubi said with a grin that only he was out. "But not only did we break the seal, but since you are a direct descendant of me, I was able to activate the dormant fox demon blood inside of you, making you a fox demon. But not just any fox demon. Since you are related to me, you will take my place as leader of the Fox clan, Prince of Demons. And when you get all 9 tails of power, you will be the king of all demons. But until that time you are going to be training, because you're not going to be all powerful just like that, understood?" Kyuubi said with a stern face. With his head lowered and his bangs covering his eyes, Naruto said melancholy, "But if I become a demon, won't that make me evil and prove the villagers were right about me all this time?" Naruto yelled, "Fuck the villagers." Kushina yelled, "Being a demon does not imply that you will be evil. It is entirely up to you, and Kyuubi and I will support you no matter what you choose to be or do," Kushina said, finishing with a smile. With a nod of gratitude, Naruto turned back to Kyuubi and asked, "So what's next?" "Well, we see which one of our names you can hear, and before you ask, Kyuubi is only my title, not my name, and Kushina is your Ka-san's middle name because for some reason she liked using it more than her first name, so don't ask why because I don't know," said Kyuubi with a smirk. Curious, Naruto asked, "Why'd I need to know your names?" Kyuubi sighed and said, "Brat, we only have about 5 minutes left, so let me make this quick. Your bloodline has many abilities, and not just one, but I'm only explaining 2 of them right now and only the parts that you need to know. So the reason you need to know our names is to be able to call upon the true power of the swords that represent your soul," said Kyuubi, after a slight pause. Kyuubi growled and said, "Damn it, we're almost out of time, so just tell us whose name you can hear, brat," while Naruto simply nodded. Kyuubi said, "Listen carefully, my name is..." Naruto remarked, "What was that? I couldn't hear it." "It seems you aren't ready to hear my name, so I guess you're up, Kushina," Kyuubi replied. Kushina said, "Well, maybe you can hear mine, son, as she leaned over and whispered in his ear. Kushina smiled and said, "So could you hear it?" Naruto exclaimed, "Hi, Ka-san, I could hear it." Kyuubi rolled his eyes and remarked, he could hear her name. "So, for now you will only have the sword that represents your mother. Until you can hear my name, kid. Oh, and before I forget, with the seal broken. And your transformation into a demon, you were going to look different. And have a different personality along with not being as stupid. Oh, one more thing about the other ability that you have. It is a dojutsu that gives you the ability to wield the released form of your sword effectively, but you will only have one of the 4 tomes for now at least, and it will let you see things in slow motion as well as give your body the ability to keep up with your eyes, and the more tome the more abilities, which I and your Ka-san will explain what they can do as you get them. Now this is where we depart," said Kyuubi, while pushing Naruto away as they began to vanish. Kushina said, "Remember Naruto, call out my name to use my power," and then she vanished entirely. Naruto whispered, "I will, mother, and I will restore our clan to its former greatness, and that's a promise, believe it," as he and his mindscape started to fade. Using the hoofage, nothing is ever allowed to be simple, Tenzo. The Hokage said to the Anbu standing next to him as he sighed and took his pipe out of his mouth. They both watched from the window, along with the rest of the village, the massive spiraling pillar of peaceful ghostly white chakra and malevolent red chakra. The world would just stand still because nothing interesting would ever happen if everything was easy, sir, Tenzo replied in a cool, collected tone. "I suppose you're right, so we might as well get going now," Sarutobi replied. Tenzo said, "Hi," as they both vanished into a whirlpool of foliage, heading for the column of whirling red and spectral blue chakra. Unknown address, wearing a short light brown miniskirt, blue unopened toe ninja sandals, a white short sleeve button-up shirt with a thin long sleeve vest over it, and a cross-shaped rosario with a crimson circular stone in the middle with a black slit-like pupil. The girl, who appeared to be around 17 or 18, had green eyes, long silky pink hair that stopped slightly before her nicely shaped but small C-cup breasts, and a cute young face. She was wearing a belt-style choker around her neck, and when she turned around, she saw a strange yet beautiful ghostly white and malicious red chakra spiraling together. The rosario on her neck began to glow an unsettling red at that point, and she could hear it say, "So the prince has finally awakened," in a quiet, feminine voice that was a bit more grown-up than the pink-haired girl's own. The pink-haired girl questioned, "What do you mean the prince has finally awakened?" "I mean that the one destined to take Kyuubi-sama's place as the next nine-tailed fox and demon king has finally awoken, and I have a strange feeling that he might be our destined mate, but we will have to check my assumption later on when he gets older, but until then let's continue what we were doing," the voice said. With a brief pause at the end, the pink-haired girl whispered, "I wonder what he's like and if he'll finally be the one who isn't afraid of me for what I am, because I don't want to be alone anymore." The pink-haired girl thought, "I can't wait to meet you." As she continued her journey to Kumo on the dirt road just before she left, she noticed the 2 chakras combining to create an even more spectacular sight. A pillar of pure pink chakra that reminded her of her hair. "We will just have to wait and see," she said, before the glow surrounding the rosario vanished and the voice stopped completely. With Itachi raised his katana and said, "It would seem that my little brother needs me right now, so I will have to wrap this up, Shisui," in an uncanny calm voice. "You don't have it in yo," Shisui said, but before he could finish, Itachi decapitated him and used fireball jutsu to burn his body so that no one would know what had happened. After killing Shisui, Itachi's Sharingan transformed into a 3-sided pinwheel, and after closing and reopening his eyes returned to their normal solid black color. "So it seems that I have finally gained the Mangekyo Sharingan through killing my best friend. How interesting," he said. Itachi simply vanished without even a leaf swirl, saying, "I guess it is time to go and help Naruto." Using Naruto. "What the hell's going on?" a terrified civilian exclaimed. "Maybe the Kyuubi is being released," exclaimed another frightened Shunin. "Wait, look, it's dissipating," a civilian said as the spiraling vortex of chakra finally started to disappear at the end. The red malicious chakra and the ghostly white chakra merged to form a spectacular column of pink chakra before it vanished entirely. The mindscape of Naruto, the brat's chakra, actually merged with mine after accomplishing such a feat. He will undoubtedly be a power-hungry squirt when he grows up. Kushina raised an eyebrow and asked, "What would have happened if the chakras hadn't merged, and your chakra took over Naruto instead of Kyuubi-sama?" "He would have been the craziest, most psychotic, and homicidal little motherfucker you would ever meet. A chip off the old block if I do say so myself," Kyuubi said, with a big foxy grin. "But since his will was too strong to be taken over, he will be even stronger than he could have been if my chakra won," Since both chakras merged together, his chakra, which was the ghostly white, made my chakra more controlled and calm, which made it even more powerful, as well as make an interesting and beautiful pink chakra color that even I have never seen before. Kyuubi stated this with a somewhat sinister grin. Using Naruto, after about 30 seconds, the 3 civilians and 2 chunin saw a white glow surrounding what appeared to be a small child. As the chakra finally disappeared, as that light faded, they were able to see Naruto, which caused them to gasp. Naruto was about 2 inches taller, but he is still small since he's only 5, with a little more muscle and more of an athletic build. The same wild spiky hair, except it was black with blonde tips. And he had bangs just like Itachi. His whisker marks were more defined. 2 thin blue triangular markings going diagonally across his cheeks, starting at the back of his jawline to a little more than halfway past his whisker marks, where they started to thin out into a point resembling a thin triangle. A crescent light blue matching moon was also in the middle of his forehead. Slightly pointed ears, same crystal blue eyes, but now he had slitted pupils. Razor sharp claws instead of fingernails, with the same blue markings on his cheeks wrapped around his wrist. Basically the same markings as Sesshomaru from Inuyasha has, larger and sharper canines just barely short enough from poking out of his mouth, and a 4.5-foot katana with the blade 3.5 feet and the hilt 1 foot, with a rectangular gold guard with 1 swirl design on each side strapped to his back in a black sheath by a cloth-type rope. Naruto's voice was calm and calculated for a 5-year-old, and he looked at his fist, clenching and unclenching it to test out his new body. "So, I have finally awakened," he said. When he stopped doing that, he turned to face his opponents, his face as emotionless as Itachi's, but his eyes were cold, heartless, and uninterested with the same looking bangs. He genuinely resembled Itachi's younger brother because of his powerful, commanding, piercing eyes and tinge of indifference. "Now it is time for you 5 to die." Naruto paused at the end and pulled out his sword. "What could a BBB brat like you possibly do to us?" The chunin who had nearly killed him earlier stammered out. With his eyes closed and his arm at a 90-degree angle, Naruto said, "I can do this," while holding his sword in front of his face. When Naruto opened his eyes, they appeared to be glowing in the night, not a piercing blue color with a slitted pupil, but a piercing pink color with a slitted pupil, and as he said, "Now die." Scatter Senbon Sakura. A pink aura of chakra surrounded him, and the sword glowed pink as well before scattering as he had instructed. The attacker's only thought during this was how amazing the pink glow looked in the darkness. The next thing they saw was a dog-sized pink fox with red eyes, created by cherry blossoms, rush them, and then all they could hear were the agonized screams of Naruto's former attackers as they fell to the ground, each of them nearly unrecognizable due to the hundreds of shallow and deep cuts on their bodies. Naruto deactivated his dojutsu, still unsure of its name, and then put his sword back in its sheath over his back after it had glowed pink. Naruto said, in a calm and amazed voice, "This power, it's simply amazing. Is this the true power of my clan? The true power of a 7th-generation Kuchiki clan member, because it truly is intoxicating being able to feel this much power flowing through me." As he looked at his hand and clenched and unclenched it as he had done before to confirm that everything was real. In his now calm but somewhat unusual voice, Naruto asked, "Why do I feel tired all of a sudden?" As he started to collapse on the ground from exhaustion but was stopped by Itachi, as his eyelids started to get heavy. As he picked Naruto up bridal style, Itachi said, "Hi, it's me, little brother, and we must leave before the Hokage and Enbu arrive." He smirked as he said, "It seems you activated your bloodline, little brother, and changed both physically and mentally from its activation, and those changes seem to have made you look and act a little like myself. There's no denying that we truly are brothers now." As he vanished without even a swirl of leaves, Itachi thought, "I also now know from your display of power earlier, and that dojutsu I saw that seems to resemble the Sharingan, that you will be the one to surpass me one day, Naruto, and not Sasuke, and from this point on, Naruto, I will always protect you, and I will be there for you, and like you say, that is a promise, believe it." With Anbu and the Hokage and Anbu arrived at the location where Itachi and Naruto had left after a minute or two. As he gazed at the nearly unrecognizable 2 chunin and 3 civilians who were clearly dead from the hundreds of shallow and deep cuts all over their bodies, the Sandaime Hokage yelled, "Kakashi, Yugao, you were supposed to be watching Naruto, so something like this wouldn't happen." Kakashi and Yugao simply bowed their heads in embarrassment until Kakashi saw one of the chunin's moves and hurried over with the Hokage, Yugao, Tenzo, and the other 4 Anbu that followed the Hokage as backup. It was the chunin that nearly killed Naruto, however. This was an odd coincidence. Kakashi heard the dying chunin say, "Beware of Sakukitsune," Blossom Fox. Just above a whisper before he passed away, as he knelt down to try to gather information. The Hokage said in a somewhat panicked tone, "What did he say, Kakashi?" "He said beware Saku Kitsune," Kakashi remarked, looking interested. So this wasn't Naruto, because he would have definitely blamed this on the boy, the Hokage thought as he lit his pipe and stroked his chin thoughtfully. The Hokage dismissed the Anbu and vanished in a whirl of leaves, saying, "Anbu, do a thorough search of the area and the village while looking for anyone suspicious." Kakashi had no idea that Saku Kitsune would soon become a revered and feared name throughout the elemental nations. Naruto awoke to a simple room with 4 light blue walls, white ceiling, a hard oak floor, a dresser with a mirror above it, and of course, the bed he was lying in. "Where am I?" he asked. The voice said, "So you're finally awake," and it was male. Naruto sat up and said, "Come out now," as he reached for his sword, which was resting at the foot of the bed. There is no need for that, little Naruto-kun, a smiling, long-haired, navy blue woman with lavender eyes without pupils, a height of approximately 5 feet 9, small C-cup breasts, and a simple yet stylish lavender kimono that accentuated her curves said. "You are safe here, Naruto, so just relax," said a man who was 2 or 3 inches taller than the women, had lavender eyes, black hair that was about shoulder length, and wore a kimono that was the same style as the one used by men. Naruto asked, "Who are you?" in an inquisitive tone as he relaxed a little. "This is my wife, Hyuga Hitomi," Hiyashi said, gesturing to Hitomi. "My name is Hyuga Hiyashi." Naruto raised an eyebrow in curiosity and said, "So I am in the Hyuga complex, but why would you let me stay in here?" Itachi said, "I can answer that, Naruto," emerging from the shadows in the room's right-hand corner. "Well, what's going on?" Naruto asked once more, but this time he was addressing Itachi. "Well, little brother, you've been sleeping for 8 hours, and since we left the area where you were attacked at 7 o'clock at night, it's now 3 o'clock in the morning, and I brought you here because Hiyashi-sama is the one who proposed the law that has been protecting you the last 5 years, and I told him about everything I know, so he could understand the situation better, so if you would take it from here, Hiyashi-sama," Itachi said, as he turned to Hiyashi at the end. "Yes, of course, Itachi. So Naruto, I am letting you stay here because you are Ka-san. I know who it was, and she was a very good friend to me and my wife Hitomi, as well as the entire Hyuga clan general. She spent most of her free time in the Hyuga clan complex, and she would always tell me that my clan always reminded her of how her mother used to tell her how her clan was, except for the cursed seal that's on the branch family, of course. She would always tell me that I should remove the cursed seals, but that's up to the elders, not me, since you were her son. The entire Hyuga clan has decided to help you, out of respect for your deceased Ka-san. So the entire clan is aware of your situation, at least the clan members who are at least 18 years old. So you'd actually assist me?" With caution, Naruto asked. "Yes, I would, for I and the rest of the clan do not care about what you are, but who you are." Naruto narrowed his eyes at Hiyashi and said, "Don't think I'm a simpleton just because I'm older. Hiyashi-sen, I can see in your eyes that there is another reason for your kindness. I hoped I wouldn't have to tell you until a later time, but since you know I might as well explain," expressed Hiyashi, who merely scowled. "Explain what?" said Naruto, his eyebrows raised as he allowed his curiosity to overpower him. "Well, I was curious about the similarities between your Ka-san's dojutsu and the dojutsu of my clan, the Byakugan, so I." Flashback. At around 8 in the morning, Kushina was in the garden taking in the view at the Hyuga clan compound until Hiyashi entered the garden and said, "Hello Kushina-chan, may I ask for a favor?" Kushina turned to Hiyashi and asked, "What do you need, Hiyashi-kun?" "I wanted to know if you would let me run some tests on your blood, to see if the similarities between our dojutsu are just a coincidence or something else," Hiyashi said, ending with a pause. Sure, if you really want to, Hiyashi, I don't see any harm in it," replied Kushina. After collecting a blood sample from Kushina, Hiyashi said, "Thank you, Kushina, the test results should be back in a few days," and departed. "It appears that there is a connection between our 2 dojutsus, Kushina, and it's possible that the Byakugan came from your clan's dojutsu," Hiyashi said to Kushina a few days later. "Hiyashi, are you certain?" With wide eyes, Kushina asked. "I am not positive, Kushina, but there was some kind of tie between your dojutsu and the Hyuga dojutsu," Hiyashi calmly replied. Final flashback, and well, that's everything for Naruto, sighed Hiyashi. Naruto nodded to himself as he said, "So you wish to possibly find out more about my dojutsu through me, and try to find out any more similarities?" Itachi's statement, "Anyway, We must get back to more important matters, garnered him the attention he was seeking. The Hokage will be there to give his speech to the new students at the Ninja Academy in a week, and he will expect to see Naruto there. However, because Naruto has completely changed, the Hokage will start questioning him and grow wary of his new appearance before Itachi could say anything more. Hitomi and even Naruto gasped aloud, and Hiashi's eyes widened at such a bold declaration. So I have decided that I will push my plans of eradicating my clan ahead by 2 years, Itachi said, holding up his hand. Please allow me to finish. I am taking this action because my clan has been plotting to overthrow the Hokage and seize control of Leaf Village. Should that occur, the ninja world will be plunged into chaos, and I cannot just stand by and do nothing when I know I can stop it. When you return to take the Genin exams with your age group, you will be 12 because I will have taken you out of this village for 7 years to train. The catch is that we will create a special clone that acts and thinks exactly like you did before you activated your bloodline to take your place in the village, making it seem as though you never left. When you return and replace yourself with your clone, you can claim that you were concealing your true abilities and appearance until you graduated, which will enable you to avoid inquiries about your abrupt changes, Itachi said, grinning at his own cunning and astute scheme. The mindscape of Naruto. He definitely is your son Kushina, because only Fox Demon could think of such devious plan, or in Itachi's case it's because he has Fox Demon blood in him that he got from you, Kyuubi said with a foxy grin. Could you not remind me about having Itachi as my son, because it's kind of depressing finding out that I had a son when I was alive but never even knew him, Kushina said with a sad sigh. Very well, Kyuubi remarked, letting out his own breath. Returning to Naruto, Naruto grinned and added, I wouldn't expect anything less from my Nissan, which only made Itachi grin more. How long will it take to create this unique clone, then? With a raised eyebrow, Hiashi asked. Itachi pulled a few hairs from Naruto and said, it will take 4 days, since this is a very complicated forbidden jutsu, and I will also need this for the clone's creation, which caused Naruto to growl. So, Naruto, we're leaving in a week, and during that time you'll be staying here with Hiashi, who will be teaching you a lot about chakra control. That way, when we leave the village, we won't have to worry about such a basic but time-consuming training. Additionally, you will assist me in eradicating the Uchiha clan because, despite being 2 years ahead of schedule, I am also 2 years behind in my training, and I am not so conceited as to believe that I could accomplish this on my own, Itachi said, grinning pityingly at Naruto. But Itachi, I am not yet skilled enough to go against seasoned ninja, Naruto sighed and grimaced. Don't worry Naruto, I will handle the ninja and you just handle the civilians or any weak shunin with that interesting sword of yours, while I handle the rest, and the reason I need you to do this Naruto, is so I do not become overwhelmed by sheer numbers, Itachi said with a sigh. Itachi once more looked directly at Naruto and said, so, can I count on your help little brother? Of course you can Ni-san. Naruto sighed with a nod from Naruto. Itachi said, thank you, little brother, but it seems like I should be going before people start to wonder where I've been, so I will be back for you in a week. Naruto, we can't afford for someone to see me come to the Hyuga complex, so we must lay low. You are not allowed to leave this complex, Naruto, just in case people start asking you questions. Then, Itachi vanished into the shadows once more. Hiashi and his wife left the room to go back to sleep, and Naruto followed suit. So, I suggest you go back to sleep Naruto, because it's 3 am, and at 8 am, I will be training you in chakra control, and we will be keeping you a secret from the younger generation of the clan, so do not allow any of the children to see you, Hiashi said. After 2 days Hiashi congratulated Naruto on mastering tree walking, saying, congratulations, Naruto, for completing the exercise, and in only 2 days that's very impressive, and quite a feat. So, Hiashi-san, what is the upcoming exercise? Questioned Naruto. Water walking, Hiashi answered after Naruto said, then let's get started. Hiashi secretly taught him advanced chakra control over the course of the following 5 days. On the 5th day, he became proficient in tree climbing, water walking, and kunai balancing, leaving Hiashi to reflect, this kid really is a prodigy among prodigies, to be able to learn so quickly, truly is amazing. Day 6 Hiashi paused as he left Naruto alone in his private training ground, where you wouldn't have to worry about anyone finding him. Since I was only instructed to teach you chakra control, there is nothing else I can teach you, since you basically mastered all the chakra exercises I showed you, so I would suggest you use today and tomorrow morning to sharpen whatever skills you possess, because tomorrow night is when you leave and help Itachi with eradicating his clan, Hiashi said. As he prepared to use the power of Senbon Sakura, Naruto held the flower in front of his face and said, I suppose it would be wise to train with you. Senbon Sakura, 1000 cherry blossoms. Kushina said, remember Naruto to activate your dojutsu, oh and by the way it's called the Sakugan. Blossom Eye, inside Naruto's mind. Ka-san, since when have you been able to communicate with me via telepathy? A little taken aback, Naruto asked. Kushina shrugged and said, Kyuubi-sama and I just figured out how to a couple of days ago. Oh, and talk to me through your thoughts when people are around so people won't think you're completely insane, said Kushina once more. Naruto thought and said, very well, so what is it you want, Ka-san? Well, I want to show you how to control Senbon Sakura better, Kushina replied. Which lesson would you like to impart to Ka-san? As he closed and opened his eyes again, Naruto asked, revealing amazing pink eyes with a single sky blue tome in each. When Kushina said, now activate Senbon Sakura Naruto. After taking a deep breath, Naruto said, scatter Senbon Sakura, and as he did so, his sword began to glow a light pink then. He felt as though the gravity in the area had doubled, if not tripled, and he knelt down Senbon Sakura and gravity returned to normal, allowing Naruto to stand up again, his sword still in his right hand, but panting heavily. Why the devil was that? Naruto said, taking deep breaths. That, my son, was spiritual pressure or the Kuchiki clan's version of killer intent, and chakra that ninja use, but as you felt first-hand, spiritual pressure is much stronger and much more dangerous because if the wielder of the spiritual pressure is not used to it, it will affect the wielder as much if not more so than the opponent, Kushina said in a serious tone. Is it possible for me to prevent it from activating, and why didn't it have an impact on me during my previous use of Senbon Sakura? Naruto inquired. Well, you were so engrossed in the moment the last time that you failed to notice. Before I tell you how to get used to your own spiritual pressure, I must explain it to you because if you don't understand it, you will never be able to wield it properly. Spiritual pressure is always released when you either release your sword's true form or release it yourself, and the stronger you get, the more spiritual pressure you can release. Spiritual pressure is essentially your own chakra, but it's much denser and stronger than a normal chakra, and the density of it is where you get the increased pressure. For this reason, our clan calls our special kind of chakra spiritual pressure rather than just chakra. Kushina smiled at the end. Naruto inquired, so how do I learn to control it, Ka-san? Listen son, to master spiritual pressure takes months, which at the quickest, and 1 to 3 years at the most, so to put it simply, there's no way in hell you can master it or even come close to mastering it from now till evening tomorrow, Kushina said with a stern face. If so, may I ask how long it took you to become proficient in handling your spiritual pressure, Ka-san? Naruto raised an eyebrow in question. Kushina said, it only took your Ka-san 9 months, in a confident and superior tone. I see, Naruto smirked confidently, so in that case I plan to master spiritual pressure in 6 months. We'll see my son, we'll see, so anyway, since you will need your sword's released form, I will teach you how to use just the bare minimum spiritual pressure needed to activate Senbon Sakura, where it won't severely hurt you like before but still be painful to use if you can't control it, said Kushina sternly. So, Ka-san, should we begin? Naruto inquired. Hi, now remember, concentrate and release only a little bit of your spiritual pressure, Kushina said. Naruto placed his sword in front of his face and focused on releasing a small amount of his spiritual pressure. When he felt he had enough, he activated his Sakugan and said, scatter Senbon Sakura. To his relief, the spiritual pressure he released was enough to make him feel uncomfortable and make it a little difficult for him to move, but it was not nearly as bad as before. Very good, Naruto. Now we will be practicing like this until sundown, which will be when you go to sleep, and then you will wake up at sunrise, and practice more in doing what we are doing now, until you can withstand the little bit of spiritual pressure you are releasing now. So you better train hard because we stop training tomorrow evening, and when you're done helping Itachi destroy the Uchiha clan, you are not allowed to use Senbon Sakura until further notice, Kushina said. Why not, Ka-san, though? With wide eyes, Naruto inquired. Because Naruto, your body is too young and underdeveloped to use your spiritual pressure excessively. Because you can seriously harm yourself permanently if you do use it. That is why I and Kyuubi-sama will be training you in a strict physical training program, as well as Itachi probably will, and when you're at an adequate physical level and your body has developed to an also adequate degree, I will start your training in your spiritual pressure, and also increase your knowledge of Senbon Sakura's powers, but from now till you leave this village will be the last times you can use Senbon Sakura's true form, Kushina said with a serious tone. Naruto added, very well, Ka-san, sighing. All right, then let's begin anew, Kushina said once more. 7:30 p.m. on day 7, little brother, are you prepared to leave? Itachi questioned Naruto. Naruto turned to face Hiyashi and said, hi Ni-san, and I would like to thank you, Hiyashi-san, for all your help and teachings over the past week. Don't worry about it, Just come visit when you're back, Hiyashi said, grinning a little. Naruto said, of course, and nodded his head. Itachi said, if that is all, we will be going now, before putting his hand on Naruto's shoulder and vanishing. Hiyashi smirked and remarked, your boy is going to become something great one day, Kushina. 820 Uchiha District 5-year-old Sasuke Uchiha hurried home from the park, saying, I need to hurry, or Tu-san and Ka-san will be angry that I'm late. So that's Sasuke, your other little brother. A tiny figure on a building's roof said it had pink eyes and one blue book in each, which seemed to glow an uncanny pink in the night's darkness. The larger figure said, yes it is, with 3 black and red tones in each eye that also appeared to glow an unsettling red. When Sasuke slowed down and looked around, he noticed the dead bodies of his fellow Uchiha scattered along the dirt road. Why is it so quiet? It's not time for everyone to be in bed yet, he said. What's happening? Sasuke said, his face horrified, tears welling up at the corners of his eyes. What about Ka-san and Tu-san? Instead, as he started to run home, Sasuke spoke in a worried tone. Upon arriving home, he went inside and opened the door to his parents' room. He screamed as loudly as he could because he saw his parents, Ka-san and Tu-san, lying on the floor, seemingly dead. So little brother, you are finally here, Itachi said in a remarkably composed voice. Sasuke yelled in panic, Ni-san, who did this? But fell silent as Itachi threw a shuriken at him more quickly than he could see, grazing his arm and causing him to wince and grab the cut with his other arm. I did this, little brother, Itachi stated in a composed tone. But why? Why did you kill Tou-san, Ka-san, and the rest of the clan? Sasuke yelled. Itachi activated Tsukuyomi on Sasuke, causing him to witness the clan's death firsthand for 72 hours straight. When it was over, Sasuke didn't even have the energy to scream. Don't worry, Sasuke. Ka-san is only knocked unconscious, and as for the reason why I did it was simply to test my limits, and it seems I have done just that, Itachi said. Now little brother, when you posses the same eyes as me, come after me so we can see who is truly stronger, because like me you possess the unique ability needed to activate the Mangekyo Sharingan, but know this, to obtain the same eyes as me you will have to kill your best, Itachi said, disappearing and causing Sasuke's only option after Itachi vanished was to crawl to his mother's side and take solace in the knowledge that his Ka-san was still alive before he passed out. North Gates, didn't you get a bit bored with Sasuke Itachi Ni-san? Naruto asked, scowling at his older brother's brutality. Itachi stated, it had to be convincing Naruto. With a composed and emotionless expression, however, Naruto could see that Itachi was genuinely saddened by what he had done. As evidenced by the few tears that were streaming from his eyes, Naruto chose to end the conversation at that point. Itachi said, come here, Naruto, and get on my back because you will only slow me down, as he knelt down to allow Naruto to mount. Naruto said, very well Itachi Ni-san, as he mounted his older brother. Itachi said, are you ready, Naruto? And was ready to take off after receiving a nod from Naruto, but he stopped when. You did not forget to place my clone in my apartment, did you? Naruto raised an eyebrow in question. Of course, Itachi and Naruto replied before vanishing into the thick forest that comprised Fire Country. 6:30 a.m. Were there any Inu survivors? The Hokage inquired. There are 2, sir, the clan head's wife and his son Sasuke, who are in the hospital right now recovering from severe mental strain. I'm guessing a powerful genjutsu, but as for Itachi, he's nowhere to be found, said the dog wearing a mask. The Hokage said, you can't find him because he's the one that did it. Hokage-sama, come quick. And Anbu yelled. The Hokage saw dead bodies covered in hundreds of shallow and deep wounds, just as he had seen a week earlier, when he arrived on the scene. So it would seem Itachi had the help of the same person that killed those 2 Chunin and 3 civilians last week, but it seems that only the Uchiha civilians and low to mid Chunin were killed by this mysterious second person, this mysterious Saku Kitsune, said the elderly Hokage as he lit his pipe. When Inu asked, so Hokage-sama, what should we do? The Hokage dismissed Inu and thought, just who are you really, Saku Kitsune? He said, we will put Itachi in the bingo book with as a S-ranked missing ninja with a $1 million reward, and we will put down the little information we have on his accomplice's power and mark him down as an A-ranked criminal of the Leaf. A day has passed since Itachi and Naruto left the Leaf Village, and since it was 8 in the morning, they were out having breakfast. So, Ni-san, what should we do right now? Between mouthfuls of his delicious dumplings, Naruto uttered these words. Itachi frowned slightly as he gazed at Naruto's orange and blue jumpsuit. Well, first we get you new clothes because no brother of mine will be wearing such an eyesore, he said. Naruto said, I have wanted a change of clothes anyway, as he glanced at his clothing for a moment. Itachi took a stick of Pocky out of his sleeve and began eating, saying, but there is one problem, which only made Naruto question where in the hell he got it. What is the issue, then? Naruto inquired. Itachi blushed slightly. The problem is I forgot to take any money with me, she said. The voice of Ka-sans interrupted Naruto before he could respond. Go to the National Bank of Whirlpool. Naruto, do you really think I left you with nothing, my son? However, wasn't the whirlpool destroyed, Ka-san? Asked Naruto, raising an eyebrow. Just because Whirlpool was destroyed doesn't mean that the chain of banks it had were destroyed, since there was only one bank in Whirlpool and the rest were around the country. The bank was still able to continue operating, and that means the Kuchiki clan fortune that the bank held is still there, which means you inherit it all since you're the last of the clan, Kushina said with a smirk on her face. So, Naruto, did you just speak with Kyuubi or Ka-san? Questioned Itachi. When they left Konoha, Naruto told Itachi everything. Naruto smirked and said, I was talking to Ka-san, and it seems she has an idea that will help fix our money problems, Ni-san. Itachi gave him a questioning look before getting up and following, and after about 5 minutes of walking, Itachi finally asked. Where are we going, little brother? Itachi inquired. Once Naruto said, we are going to a bank and seems that we have finally arrived, Itachi followed suit, looking at the bank's name and reading aloud, National Bank of Whirlpool, before raising an eyebrow at Naruto as they entered the bank together. An average-sized man standing behind the counter asked Naruto, so how may I help you? I would like to make a withdrawal from the Kuchiki clan savings, Naruto replied. The clerk smirked and said, sorry, but that clan has been gone for the last 50 years, so I can't just believe you from it without some proof, like maybe you could show me the clan's fabled Sakugan dojutsu. He had assumed that the child was merely phoning him for money, but when he saw what Naruto did next, it made him go pale. Naruto said, very well, since that is understandable, as his eyes once more transformed into the Sakugan, a bright pink collar with a blue tome in each eye. With wide eyes and still ghostly pale, the clerk said, you really are from that clan, barely audible above a whisper. Yes, I am, and so is my older brother that's standing right beside me, but for reasons I'm not going to disclose to you, he doesn't possess the bloodline like I do, Naruto replied. I see. Well, I'll be sure to tell the bank's owner that the Kuchiki clan has returned, so the computer says that there is $2 billion in your checkings account and 10 billion in your savings account, so how much would you like to take out Kuchiki-sama? Naruto and Itachi's eyes widened significantly at the clerk's words, and when their faces returned to normal after their shock, they both had the same smirks that would instantly tell anyone who saw them that they were brothers. Itachi said, so it seems, little brother, that you are financially fit for the rest of your life, with a slight smile rather than his usual smirk. You mean we're both financially stable, don't you? Naruto inquired. No, Naruto, because even though we may both be from the Kuchiki clan, I was still born Uchiha with the Uchiha bloodline and not the Kuchiki bloodline, so only you can pass down the Kuchiki bloodline, whereas I can only pass down the Uchiha bloodline, Itachi said with a slight smirk. Alright, so that we both have our own money, how about you simply open your own account and I deposit $2 billion into it? Said Naruto with a slight smile. That just might be doable, Itachi remarked, grinning a little. The clerk said, already done, so all you have to do is sign here and I can activate your account. Just as Itachi and Naruto were ready to give him instructions. Itachi Uchiha, Itachi said. Ah yes, Itachi-san, the clerk said, passing Itachi the documents he needed to sign in order to open an account. He also gave Naruto the documents he needed to sign in order to authorize such a large money transfer and to reactivate the Kuchiki account under his sole control. So, could I snap a photo of you, Kuchiki-sama, now that that's over? The clerk inquired. Naruto merely gave him a questioning glance as he asked, what for? So I can show the owner of the bank what the new Kuchiki clan heir looks like and also give it to the newspaper, because a live Kuchiki hasn't been seen in the last 50 years and the clan was rumored to be the strongest, so this could make the news story of the century, not to mention being a part of that clan makes you a noble. This will also help you as well, since powerful people like daimyos and nobles will want to meet you and become friends with you, the clerk said in a hurried and excited voice. Normally I would say no to such publicity, but this could help me in restoring my clan's name to being famous like it used to be, Naruto thought as he responded, very well. Naruto then allowed the clerk to take his picture, and the two of them left the bank, Naruto with a checkbook covered in red foxes because that was the only color they had foxes in, and Itachi with a new checkbook covered in black ravens. So, Ni-san, are you heading to the clothing store? Naruto inquired. Itachi responded, yes, we are, and it was pretty fortunate for us to find out that you're actually loaded. Before Naruto could respond, we're here. Their destination was a small but tasteful store called the Gold Clothes Store, and as the name suggests, the exterior of the establishment was painted gold. Naruto said, so this should work, as he and Itachi entered the store. How can I assist you? Inquired the young girl who had just emerged from the rear. Itachi pointed to his Anbu uniform and said, I would like 4 more outfits just like the ones I'm wearing. And I would like this, Naruto said, passing the girl a sheet of paper containing the details of his new outfit. The girl with the whistle said, wow, that's some nice design, kid, and then she vanished into the back of the store. You should come back in 2 days to get your clothes, she repeated. As they walked out of the store, Naruto said, so what do we do now, Ni-san? Itachi smiled at his achievement and said, well, first we should find a nice secluded clearing and start training. Well, look at that, I just made a rhyme. Naruto sighed and said, let's just find somewhere to train, although he was sweating. After 30 minutes there was a clearing on the outskirts of town where Naruto and Itachi were. So Naruto, I'm going to explain to you your training regimen for the next 4 years. For the next 2 years we will be working on speed, strength, and stealth, and the year after that we will be training in a fighting style, and since you told me that your dojutsu lets you see in slow motion as well as giving your body the ability to keep up with your eyes, and the little Hiyashi told me about your eyes being able to see chakra points, I've decided that you will be learning a combination of the Hyuga Gentle Fist and Maeda-Gai's Iron Fist using the scrolls that I stole, generously given to me by Hiyashi-sama and Maeda-Gai. The year after that I will show you how to properly use that sword of yours by teaching you the most advanced Uchiha sword style that I know, as well as teach you some techniques here and there, Itachi. Naruto inquired, so what's the name of the sword style? The Uchiha call it fox style as a way to honor the 9-tailed fox's power, Itachi said with a simple smirk. Naruto grinned as well and remarked, then it really must be the perfect kenjutsu style for me. Yes, it is, Itachi said, passing 2 pairs of chakra weights to Naruto. As I mentioned, we will be working on speed, strength, and stealth, so put these chakra weights on your legs and wrists and don't take them off until I tell you to, she added. Now that you have them on, start running laps around the field, Itachi said. Naruto simply sighed and began running after putting enough chakra into the weights so that the ones on his arms and legs weighed 10 pounds each and 20 pounds each. As he began running, he could swear he saw Itachi start laughing maniacally, but when he turned around, all he saw was Itachi's typical, and interesting, and neutral expression. Itachi merely grinned as Naruto resumed his run and then sat beneath the tree to eat another stick of Pocky that he had taken from his sleeve. After 2 days Naruto entered the Gold Clothes Store, alone, and said, hello, is anyone here? Itachi had promised to wait for him outside the town so they could depart. The young girl exclaimed, oh, it's you, Kuchiki-sama, which only caused Naruto to furrow his brow and inquire, how do you know my name? The girl frantically handed Naruto a newspaper with a large, colorful picture of him on the front page and an article at the bottom that he began reading in his mind. What, you mean you don't know you're in all the morning newspapers and on the front page too? She exclaimed. Naruto Kuchiki is a recently found surviving member of the noble Kuchiki clan from Whirlpool Country, which was believed to have been exterminated along with Whirlpool 50 years ago due to an unidentified incident. Based on his appearance in the photo provided to us by an anonymous tip, he is approximately 5 years old. Unfortunately, that is all we know about the mysterious Kuchiki heir. This child is not only the heir to a lost clan that was rumored to have a bloodline stronger than any other, but it also makes him nobility and wealthy from all the money he inherits from his clan. With a slight smile, Naruto remarked, it appears that my clan's name will regain its fame sooner than I had anticipated. The girl handed Naruto the 6 identical outfits he had ordered wrapped in a paper bag along with Itachi's outfits. Anyway, Kuchiki-sama, your order is done along with your older friends, but you still need to pay for it, please, and since the chakra-absorbing silk you asked us to make your outfits out of makes your order cost extra since it's very hard to find and very expensive, she said. Even though it's expensive, it's worth it since the silk will become as hard as steel when I add chakra to it, making it harder for weapons to actually cut me during a battle. So anyway, how much will it cost? Naruto asked at the conclusion. The girl smiled and said, it will cost $60,898 for your order and your older friends. Naruto simply took out his checkbook and began writing, nice things cost a lot, and then he sighed as he gave the girl the check and asked, where's your changing room? After she gave him the location, he changed into one of his new outfits. When Naruto emerged, he threw away his old orange jumpsuit and looked in the mirror on his right to see that he was wearing a silk sky blue kimono top that matched his eyes and had a black trim. He was also wearing matching samurai, or soul reapers from Bleach, style pants with a black silk sash tied around his waist, and sitting on his back was a pink fox with red eyes that seemed to glow above the fox's head was the kanji for Saku Kitsune, which Itachi suggested was what the Hokage and the Anbu in Konoha were calling him. His sword was over his back, with the handle resting on his right shoulder. The young girl remarked, "You really look like a clan heir and noble now, Kuchiki-sama," before returning to the rear of the store. When Naruto left to meet Itachi, he couldn't help but smile a little. 20 minutes later in the town's outskirts, after Naruto handed him his clothes from the store, Itachi remarked, "Are you ready, Naruto? This is where our journey really starts." "Hi, I'm ready," Naruto said, and he and Itachi then began to leave as the sun was setting. 4 years later, Itachi is 17 and Naruto is 9. Itachi, who was taller than he used to be at around 5 feet 8 or 5 feet 9, said, "Your training under me, Naruto, is now complete because I have nothing left to teach you, but that doesn't mean you have nothing left to learn considering you're at a low Chunin level, which is still impressive seeing as I was at a mid to high Chunin when I was 9, but you seem to have surpassed me in strength when I was your age, which means you're progressing even faster than I have." Naruto, who also didn't look much different other than being a little more muscular and being around 4 feet 3 or 4 feet 4 and wearing the same outfit he had purchased when he was 5, said, "So I suppose you're going to go and become a member of that Akatsuki organization you told me about, so you can find out why they want me and the other Baiju." "That's right, Hi. In order for us to be better prepared for when they decide to attack you, I need to know who they are, how strong they are, and what they plan to do if they don't. I'll leave their organization and join you. However, it is your 9th birthday today, so I got you this," Itachi said as she gave Naruto a package. The latest Leaf Bingo book. Naruto smirked as he opened it. Itachi knelt down and hugged Naruto, saying, "I thought it would keep you busy, but don't go after someone you're not sure you can handle since I won't be there to protect you if you get into trouble. Oh, and take those weights off because they can't do anything else for you and wearing them will only be a hindrance." He then stood back up and said, "We'll see each other again before you know it," as he disappeared with his amazing speed. Naruto said, "Goodbye, big brother," while shedding silent tears of sadness over being alone once more. Itachi was the only person he was really close to, and he was gone for an unknown amount of time. For the first time in the past 4 years, Naruto took out the weights, which weighed 600 pounds each for his legs and 400 pounds each for his arms, totaling 2,000 pounds, and placed them inside a pocket on the inside of his kimono top. "What am I going to do now?" he said quietly. "My son, it's nice to have them gone at last," Kushina said. "Yes, it does, Ka-san," Naruto replied. "Naruto, I have decided that you are finally ready to master your spiritual pressure and start learning secret Kuchiki clan techniques." Naruto declared, "It's about time," and began to make his way to a more isolated area of the forest to practice. Naruto activated his Sakugan, which now had 3 blue tones that allowed him to see things in slow motion, give his body the ability to keep up with his eyes, see chakra points, and see what his opponent was going to do before they did it, as he entered a field in the middle of the forest and began drawing Senbon Sakura. At this point, Naruto releases Senbon Sakura with all of his spiritual pressure. Keep in mind that the more spiritual pressure you release, the stronger you get and the wider the pressure gets. Therefore, take care not to flatten yourself into a pancake, son, Kushina said. Naruto simply nodded while putting his sword in front of his face and uttering the words. "Scatter Senbon Sakura," he said, feeling the intoxicating power of the Kuchiki clan surge through him, boosting his strength to high Junin or low Anbu. However, at that moment, his spiritual pressure reached its peak, causing his breathing to become labored and making it difficult for him to remain upright. The only reason he was able to do so was because of the weights his brother gave him and the rigorous training he underwent. As he allowed Senbon Sakura to return to normal, the pressure subsided, and he stood there leaning on his sword for support. Kushina grinned and said, "I recall you telling me that you could master this power in just 6 months, so do you think you still can?" "It feels good to use this power again, and yes I can," Naruto declared, his voice full of resolve. "You know what, Naruto, if you can master spiritual pressure within 4 months I'll start teaching you the advanced techniques of our clan known as demon magic or Hado and Kido," Kushina said while emphasizing the 4. Then, Naruto grinned, "It's a deal." After 6 months. Naruto grinned as he walked down a road that would take him from Earth Country into Fire Country, where you would spend the following year. That is, until a group of 4 stone Anbu caught him. "So I did master spiritual pressure in the 4 months, and I learned 3 high-level Hado and Kido to a degree where I don't even need the incantation," he said. "Are you Naruto Kuchiki, kid?" one of the Anbu called out. "What's it to you?" Naruto asked, his face and voice imitating that of an emotionless Itachi. Well, we have orders from the Tsuchikage to bring you back to the village hidden in the stones so you can start a clan there, so kid, what do you say? The Anbu said with a smug tone. Naruto activated his Sakugan and pulled out his sword, putting it in front of his face. I say that it seems I've finally found a couple of idiots to test my skills on, he said. The Anbu hurried Naruto and the others just sat back and watched, assuming they wouldn't need assistance with a small child. For that little comment we won't bring you back unscathed, he said. Foolish, now scatter Senbon Sakura, Naruto said, and as he released 3/4 of his spiritual pressure. From now on it will be SP. The sword broke into 1,000 pink shards that resembled cherry blossoms. This was sufficient to flatten a mid-chunin, but it would only cause some difficulty for anyone of a higher level. As the cherry petals sliced through him, reducing him to a heap of flesh covered in dying blood, the Anbu captain watched in horror as the blossoms transformed into a dog-sized fox with red eyes that were staring at the Anbu with eyes that desired their blood. When Naruto said, "You shouldn't forget about me," one of the Anbu's pointer and middle fingers were extended and touched his shoulder. He then said, "Hado number 4 Baikari, white lighting," and a bolt of white lightning shot from his fingers, piercing his shoulder with a 2-inch diameter hole. The Anbu then leapt about 3 meters away from Naruto, attempting to put some distance between them while grasping his shoulder with his hand. "Hey, why don't you come help me out here?" To the other Anbu, he yelled. "I have a lot going on," the other Anbu, who had just escaped the Blossom Fox's lunge, yelled. Naruto grinned and assumed a stance halfway between the gentle and iron fists. "So it's just you and me. I hope you prove more of a challenge than your dead captain," he said. "You are a bastard." As he hurried Naruto, he shouted out the Anbu. Naruto prepared to strike his opponent's heart and put an end to the situation swiftly. "You fool, only idiots rush in blindly," he said. The real Anbu appeared behind Naruto, thrusting a kunai in his stomach and grinning behind his mask, but that smirk soon changed to a horrified expression as he heard Naruto say, "Great clone explosion," before the Naruto clone exploded, sending the now dead body of the stone Anbu somewhere. Naruto struck his heart with deadly speed and accuracy as the Anbu came into range. Is this thing going to stop? When he saw Naruto sheathing his sword, his eyes returned to normal. Screamed out the last surviving Anbu as he held his shredded and bleeding shoulder caused by the Blossom Fox after it bit him there, and just as the fox appeared to be about to finish him off, it vanished into thin air. As he passed the stunned Anbu, Naruto grinned and said, "Tell your Tsuchikage that Naruto Kuchiki the Saku Kitsune refuses his offer." He thought, "This little stunt should get me put into the bingo book, giving me a better reputation in the ninja world." After a week presenting this month's new bingo book to the Hokage, Inu said, "Hokage-sama, the new bingo book has something that you should find very interesting in the Tsuchigakura criminal section," as she entered the Hokage's office. The Hokage said, "Let's have a look then," as he turned to the first page of Tsuchigakura's criminal section. His pipe fell out of his mouth when he saw a boy who was no older than 9 or 10 and who was an S-ranked criminal of Tsuchigakura. He recognized the boy from the news articles 4.5 years prior, but what really caught his attention was that the information about him stated that he had some sort of strange dojutsu and was able to create a dog-sized fox out of razor-sharpened cherry blossoms. As he continued to read the kid's nickname, he dropped the book and exclaimed, "This is the Saku Kitsune." "This kid's the talk of the Chunin, Junin, and Anbu, sir," Inu replied. "This child is no older than 10, and he's already marked as a S-ranked criminal. It's just insane for a child so young to possess so much strength," stated the Hokage. Inu remarked, "Just think of how strong he'll be in a few more years, sir." Inu, "The resignation from the Anbu you sent me has been accepted, so as of tomorrow you're a Junin," the Hokage uttered with a sigh during that moment. As he removed his dog mask, Inu said, "Thank you, Hokage-sama," exposing silver hair that defied gravity, a leaf headband that covered his right eye, and a navy blue cloth mask that extended from his neck to halfway past his nose. The third said, "You're dismissed, Kakashi," as the latter bowed slightly and vanished in a cloud of smoke. The Hokage sighed as he asked, "When will you come back to the leaf, Naruto, and just how strong will you be when you return?" As he couldn't help but stare out his window after Kakashi had left. Two figures were sitting at opposite ends of a long, plain oak table in a dark underground cave. The only light source was a single candle in the middle of the table, which wasn't even bright enough to reveal the two enigmatic faces of the people. Only 2 pairs of eyes were visible, one with pink eyes and 4 rings around his pupil, and the other with strange rings around his pupil. A typical black pupil surrounded by a blue tone. "It appears that your nephew Naruto Kuchiki is getting stronger every day, Grimjao-sama," the man with the rings in his eye remarked. "Yes, I know, he is quite impressive, isn't he?" Exactly what I'd expect of a 7th-generation member of my clan Pain-san. The newly named Grimjow replied with an invisible smirk. The newly appointed Pain asked, so what should we do about him then? Grimjow, his invisible smirk still visible, said, we will leave him be for now, for I wish to see how strong he can become. Understood Grimjow-sama, but before I go, do you have any orders for me to give to Akatsuki? Pain asked, before rising from his seat. Grimjow turned around in his chair and said, no, you can go. He then heard his subordinate leave the room and said, we will meet face to face soon, nephew, after which the lone candle in the center of the table went out and the room became dark. 6 months have passed since Naruto's Anbu incident in Earth Country, which, as he had predicted, increased his notoriety in the ninja community. His mother began teaching him the Kuchiki clan's flash step technique about a month ago, and it would take him several more months to master the technique that is said to give the Kuchiki clan members god-like speed. He also became more accustomed to using Senbon Sakura and eventually obtained the last tome of his Sakugan, which allowed him to see things even more slowly. His 10th birthday was October 10th, and he was depressed as he strolled through Tanazuka town because it would be his first birthday without his brother since he had moved out a year ago. What should I do today? I know since I'm going back to the Leaf Village in 2 years I should have someone start building a house for me in the Leaf, so I have somewhere nice to live, replied. Naruto began making his way to a construction company on foot. So kid, half now and the other half when the house is finished, said a big man with muscles that could only be developed from years of carrying heavy objects while working in construction. Naruto handed the man a check for $2.50 million and said, deal, but just remember that you have to finish it in 2 years. The man remarked, no problem kid, just leave it to me and my crew. Before heading out to find something else to do, Naruto simply nodded in response. A stunning girl with pink hair and green eyes passed him as he was strolling down the street, but he simply shook his head and continued on. A voice from Rosario said, stop, now turn around, on the pink-haired girl's chest. The girl gazed at the red glowing Rosario and asked, what is it? The voice from the Rosario said, follow that little boy you just passed. The pouting girl with the pink hair asked, but why should I? A little annoyed by the girl's interrogation, the voice exclaimed, don't ask questions, just do as I tell you. The pink-haired girl sighed and said, fine, before jumping on a roof and beginning to follow Naruto. Since the same pink-haired girl from earlier had been pursuing him around the park for the past hour, Naruto's eyebrows were twitching wildly every time he turned around. He saw her run behind a tree with a small squeak of surprise. Even though Naruto knew the girl wasn't a threat, he finally said, could you please just come out and tell me what it is you want? Because it was becoming really annoying to have this weird girl follow him. The girl said, sorry about following you, and his eyes widened in shock as he thought, how the hell did this girl get behind me, without me noticing? As Naruto turned around, he had to acknowledge that he was a little intimidated by the girl. He thought, holy shit, this girl must be at least 6 feet 1. I mean, I'm about 4 feet 5, and she looks like she's 2 feet taller than me. And most of the girls I normally see are only around 5 feet 7 and 5 feet 9. She's definitely the tallest girl I've ever seen. But also the cutest. Where the hell did that come from? Before shaking his head. The newly named Mocha smiled and said, my name's Akashiya Mocha, what's yours? As she leaned down and was just a few inches away from Naruto's face, causing him to flush with shame. My names are Naruto KK Kuchiki, Naruto uttered, stuttering a little. Mocha, this is the boy we've been looking for. I can tell because of the small demonic aura surrounding him is the same as the one we saw 5 years ago. So stay with him and get to know him better, said the voice coming from Rosario. Mocha sighed, but how am I supposed to do that? Her abrupt, odd question only caused Naruto to raise an eyebrow. The voice said, figure it out yourself, and then abruptly stopped speaking, which only caused Mocha to sigh once more. Naruto said, I'm sorry, Mocha-san, but is there anything wrong? Blood was streaming from his nose because he had, accidentally, glanced down her shirt. Sorry Naruto, but fox demon blood and human blood are a vampire's favorite, Mocha said as she began to bite Naruto on the neck and begin sucking his blood. He realized that she was even closer at that point and could smell the blood dripping from his nose. In a desperate attempt to escape the girl sucking his blood, Naruto thought, why can't I move? And what does she mean she is a vampire? He also thought, she smells like cherry blossoms. Out of town skirts, he said, I've finally found you Naruto Kuchiki, and now I can kill you and take your place as the next Kyuubi. While sporting a white kimono top and matching samurai-style pants, the man had amber-slitted eyes, long silver hair, razor-sharp claws, pointed ears, and 5 silver dog-like tails waving behind him. Returning to Naruto, it was fortunate that the park was deserted for the day because otherwise, people would have likely been observing them. "Thanks for the meal, Naruto-kun," exclaimed Mocha as she eventually let go of Naruto and got back up, grinning. After that, all Naruto could do was stare at the spot where she had bitten him. He saw that there was no bite mark, but it appeared as though she had given him a hickey, which made him red in the face once more at the thought of such a lovely girl doing such a thing to him. Anyway, how did you know I was a fox demon, and what do you mean you're a vampire?" replied Naruto. Naruto followed Mocha to the closest park bench and sat down beside her after she glanced down, but before they could exchange words, a strange man with 7 silver tails emerged from the trees. "Hello, my name is Ryuk, and I am the 5-tailed dog, and I have come to kill you, Naruto Kuchiki, and take your place as the next Kyuubi," Ryuk replied. Naruto got up from the bench and said, "Mocha-san, please get behind something, because this is going to get messy." He then activated his Sakugan and drew Senbon Sakura in an instant. He appeared behind Ryuk and slashed at his back, but when he looked up, he saw with wide eyes that his attack didn't even penetrate this guy's shirt. Ryuk smirked and turned around, saying, "Well, you're a fast little bugger, I'll give you that, but you're nowhere near strong enough to pierce my skin with that sword of yours yet." Even faster than Naruto's Sakugan could follow, he punched Naruto in the stomach, knocking so much air out of his lungs that he couldn't even scream as he flew through half a mile of trees. He finally stopped when he struck a boulder and embedded spider web cracks in it, before he fell face first on the forest floor, his eyes blank. "Damn, I punched him too hard. Now I have to walk all the way over there to finish him off," Ryuk grumbled. Mocha was only able to watch in horror and with tears in her eyes as the 5th strongest Baiju prepared to kill the boy who was supposed to be her first friend. "You fool, hurry to him, and tell him to remove the Rosario so I can save him," shouted. The voice of Rosario Mocha retorted, "But no one can remove the Rosario." "Now go," the voice said angrily. "If he is the one we are meant to be with, as I believe he is, then he will be." Mocha simply nodded while wearing a resolute expression as she walked over to where Ryuk and Naruto were engaged in a one-sided altercation, with Ryuk playing with Naruto. Ryuk grinned and said, "Not dead yet, are you? Because I haven't even had any fun yet," as he approached Naruto, who was about 40 yards away but getting closer with every step. Naruto heard Kyuubi speaking to him as he regained his balance on unsteady legs with the help of his sword. "Well, kid, all I can say is that you are totally fucked. Since you can't even run, your only hope is for some miracle to happen," Kyuubi said with a sigh. After that, Naruto's only response was to twitch his eyebrows angrily and say, "Why don't you tell me your name then? You still aren't strong enough to hear my name, kid, and besides it wouldn't do you much good in the condition you're in," Kyuubi murmured. Naruto stood straight up, breathing raggedly, after 2 of his ribs punctured his right lung and at least 4 others were broken. "Okay, then, I'll make my own miracle," he said. "So you can actually stand. I'm quite impressed even though that punch was only a quarter of the strength of one of my normal punches," Ryuk grinned. With his right arm extended and his middle and pointer fingers pointing in Ryuk's direction, Naruto said, "You son of a bitch, let's see how you like this." Bakudo 61. 6 bars of light, Ryuk exclaimed, "What the hell is this?" as he struggled to break free from the odd 6 bars of yellow light that had encircled him and held him in place. As he raised his palm to Ryuk, Naruto thought, "This is my only chance. I have to gather all of my remaining energy into one attack, and it might at least harm him, giving me and Mocha-san time to escape." Naruto threw all of his remaining strength, keep in mind that strength is spiritual pressure, into that final attack and unleashed a huge wave of blue fire. "Now eat this, you pathetic excuse of a Baiju, Hado 33, blue fire, crash down," he yelled. Ryuk sighed and said, "Damn, this is going to sting," just before the fire struck him and caused a huge explosion. Mocha whispered, "I have to hurry or I'll end up being too late," after noticing the nearby explosion. The dust cleared and revealed the few scorch marks on his clothing, but aside from that, Ryuk was unfazed by Naruto's attack. "Damn kid, that actually hurt a little," he said. "What am I supposed to do now? I have nothing left," Naruto said, taking deep breaths and support himself with his sword. Ryuk smirked as he stood over Naruto, his claws poised to rip his head off. "Thanks for the entertainment, kid, but it's about time I ended this," he said. "So this is how it ends," Naruto thought as he waited for the inevitable while closing his eyes. Ryuk yelled, "Die!" As he cut the air, Ryuk exclaimed, "What the fuck? Where did the kid go?" And, turning his head to the right, he saw Naruto curled up in the lap of the pink-haired girl he had seen earlier. "Why didn't you flee when you had the opportunity, Mocha-san?" asked Naruto. glancing at Mocha seated above him. "Because you're my first friend, and I don't want to lose you," Mocha said, her eyes watering. "Friend huh, I've never had one," Naruto said quietly, shedding a few silent tears. "My older brother would be the closest thing that I've ever had to a friend, but he left a year ago, leaving me all alone, just like I was for the first 5 years of my life," Naruto said. "We could be each other's first friends, Naruto-kun," Mocha said. "You would be friend Mocha-san?" Naruto asked, staring at Mocha incredulously. "Of course Naruto-kun," Mocha remarked, grinning down at Naruto's incredulous expression. "So sorry to interrupt this little sentimental moment, but I really got to kill the kid little girl, so you can either stay there and die with him, or since I'm feeling nice today I'll let you move and live," Ryuk said as he approached them. Mocha yelled, "No, I won't let you kill Naruto," as she attempted to protect him with her body. Naruto yelled, "Mocha-san move," as he attempted to push her away from him but inadvertently removed the Rosario from her chest. He removed the Rosario. Mocha thought incredulously. Ryuk yelled, "Then you can die together," but before he could cut them to pieces, a menacing demonic aura emanating from Mocha pushed him back. When he looked up, he saw Mocha standing in the center of a pinkish-violet chakra tower, holding Naruto bridal style. When the chakra dissipated, he couldn't help but shake in terror because the demonic aura she was releasing was so strong that he could honestly say it rivaled the former Kyuubi. Her demonic aura was so strong that it caused the clouds to turn black, the blue sky to turn crimson, and even the moon to take the place of the sun, glowing crimson like the now crimson sky. In addition, Ryuk saw that she had silver hair, crimson eyes with black slits in the pupils, pointed ears, razor-sharp claws, a large C-cup chest rather than a small one, and a more serious expression that gave her a more mature appearance than before. Mocha laid Naruto gently on the grass and said, "I'll deal with this trash now, Naruto," in a slightly deeper but still feminine voice. Village of Leaf. When he and the Hokage were outside with the rest of the elemental countries in the Leaf Village, a random Chunin asked, "What's going on, Hokage-sama?" They were gazing at the black clouds, the crimson moon that had somehow taken the place of the sun, and the now crimson sky. However, what truly alarmed people was the strong demonic aura that pervaded the atmosphere. The Hokage said, "I have no idea," as his pipe slipped from his lips. With Itachi, a man with a blue face asked, "Hey Itachi, why are you using Tsukuyomi on me?" Itachi said, "I'm not Kisame, but it does seem strange for the sky to change so drastically in such a short amount of time," before they continued to walk. Returning to Mocha and Naruto, "Ryuk, you will not be leaving this place alive," Mocha replied. "I finally know what you are. Yo, you're a vampire, a legendary and ancient demon rumored to be born in darkness, and considered to be the pinnacle of demonic power. That supposedly made even the 9 Baiju look inferior, except for the 8-tailed and 9-tailed, Ryuk said, as he restored some of his determination. As she disappeared from his view, Mocha remarked, "You were right, and I am also the last of my kind. Now get ready. Ryuk, the 5-tailed dog." Mocha reappeared and used her power to send Ryuk flying through the trees after punching him in the face. However, Ryuk's flight was abruptly cut short when Mocha appeared behind him with her knee raised. Ryuk screamed in agony as his back struck Mocha's knee, and she then lowered her leg again, allowing Ryuk to drop to the floor. With a sly smile, Mocha asked Ryuk, "Is this all the mighty Gobi has to offer?" Ryuk screamed, "You bitch," as he stood up and attempted to strike this unstoppable nighttime goddess. In between punches, Ryuk yelled, "Why can't I punch you?" Mocha continued to gracefully dodge and weave around his punches and kicks for the final few minutes. Naruto, who was watching the fight from the sidelines and had a slight flush on his face, asked, "Is this really the same Mocha-san from before?" "Someone has a crush on Mocha-san." Naru-chan, Kushina uttered in a sing-song voice. "Will you please shut up, Ka-san," said Naruto, and before Kushina had a chance cut off with a serious tone. "Naruto, that girl out there is a vampire, a legendary and ancient demon that was said to be born from darkness, and known as gods and goddesses of the night during ancient times, though they were thought to have become extinct half a millennia ago, so I thought you should know what you're getting yourself into if you do fall for this girl. I could care less if she is some ancient and powerful demon, because the only thing that matters is she said she would be my friend, and she's fighting that creature that tried to kill me right now in order to protect me," Naruto replied. Before vanishing back into Naruto's head, Kyuubi said, "Just keep in mind that if you get involved with this girl you will be playing with fire, and if you don't be careful you will get burned." Naruto declared, "I'll deal with whatever comes along." Ryuk screamed, "Why are you so much stronger?" after being punched through a tree and appearing battered and bruised all over. while Mocha simply stood over him without even getting a scratch or having trouble breathing. With her demonic chakra focused on her hand, Mocha made it denser and denser until it reached its releasing point. I am tired of this waste of time, so now it's time to finish this. Know your place, she said. When she produced a ball of extremely concentrated demonic chakra that would have been sufficient to kill even him, Ryuk could only watch in horror. He was somewhat relieved when she halted the attack and began speaking. I will let you live if you spread the word among the demons that Naruto Kuchiki, the prince of all demons, is now protected by the last vampire, Mocha said, her eyes narrowing. Ryuk stammered out, considers it do done, and then he disappeared. Mocha said, now to check up on Naruto, and she began to approach him. Despite his remarkable healing factor, Naruto was still bruised from his previous encounter, so he sheathed his sword and started to limp toward Mocha as soon as he saw her approaching. Naruto remarked, you look different, Mocha-san, as he stood in front of her and was overcome with fear at her new look and, moreover, the overwhelming demonic aura that surrounded her. Mocha simply smirked down at him as she knelt down to look him in the eye and suppressed her power because she could see that Naruto was, in fact, trembling a little. The sky and clouds returned to normal, and the sun returned. Mocha said, you know most people would run away from me, and not walk towards me, as she met his gaze. Before he passed out from his wounds, Naruto asked, grinning a little and gazing into her captivating crimson-slitted eyes, why would I run away from my only friend? As she walked to the location of the Rosario, Mocha simply grabbed him as he fell and lifted him up, placing his arms around her neck and his head on her shoulder. She then put the Rosario in a pocket on her vest and said, I feel like staying out for a while, before vanishing into the trees with Naruto in tow. Mocha said, I should take Naruto to Konoha, the closest village with a good medical facility, so he can get healed up quicker, but before she could leave, Naruto whispered, not Konoha. Mocha frowned and said, then where am I supposed to take you? At which point she heard, Tsunade-sama, you can't bet the last of our money. A long, silver-haired man with red triangles painted under his eyes stepped out from behind a tree as Mocha vanished from view on her way back to Tanazuka town. Maybe we don't have to go to Konoha after all, she said, grinning as she recalled that Tsunade, the supposedly most skilled medic ninja, had a gambling problem. That was one hell of a fight. I mean, damn, the five-tailed dog got his ass kicked by that strange girl. Man, if I got here sooner I would have been able to see the beginning. But anyway, Sarutobi-sensei's probably going to want to hear about what I saw, Jiraiya said as he began walking toward Konoha. He couldn't help but think as he was traveling with that final thought. Jiraiya sighed. I wonder who that girl is, or rather what she is, and also who was that boy. I couldn't get a good look at him because the girl was in the way. She said he only got there and began to watch the fight after Mocha changed. After all, Mocha saw that many people, especially men, were staring at her as she carried Naruto through Tanzaku town in an attempt to locate Tsunade. They were thinking, that's the hottest girl I've ever seen. Mocha asked, where could you be, Tsunade? As she was exploring the city after the sun had set a few hours prior when she heard, Tsunade-sama, you already won, so don't push your luck. Oh come on, Shizune. I'm on a winning streak. I would hardly call one win a winning streak, Tsunade-sama. Mocha grinned and said, found you, as she entered a casino to her right. Mocha said, excuse me, are you Tsunade? As she gazed at a blonde woman with brown eyes, a D-cup chest, a green kimono top, and beige pants. Tsunade said, I am, but I'm kind of busy here, as she played poker, ignoring Mocha, who was standing behind her. In retaliation, Mocha simply kicked the table with an axe, causing it to shatter in two, sending everything on it crashing to the ground and scattering in all directions. I could have won, and this bitch ruins it, Tsunade thought as she turned around and threw one of her superpowered punches at the girl behind her, turning red with rage. However, Tsunade and the young woman, who was standing next to her with a briefcase and a small pig, were shocked by what happened next. She was about 20 years old, had short black hair, brown eyes, an average bust, and a black battle kimono. Mocha caught Tsunade's punch as she saw her attempt to do so, as if it were an ordinary blow. Now that your card game is over, I need you to help the boy that I'm holding, Mocha said, glaring at Tsunade. When Tsunade finally recovered from her shock, she retorted, why should I help you after you ruined my game? Because this child is Naruto Kuchiki and I'm sure he can pay generously for your help. Tsunade was beginning to turn away from the crimson-slitted eyes that were staring at her because they reminded her of the Kyuubi, but then her mind registered the, he can pay generously, statement. Mocha responded while she was still looking Tsunade in the eyes. Tsunade asked, so how generously are we talking here, after she had lost her temper? Very generously, Mocha grinned in response. Tsunade exclaimed, "Shizune, come on, we're going to a hotel for the night," as she and Shizune left the casino, Mocha trailing behind. As they entered the two-bed hotel room, Tsunade said, "So put the kid on the bed, I'll check him out," and Mocha complied. This kid's got 4 broken ribs and 2 of them are piercing his right lung, but they appear to be healing at an extraordinary rate. In fact, all the kid needs is a good night's sleep and he will be healed by morning. He doesn't even need my help," Tsunade said with a smirk. "Getting paid for doing nothing, I love it. So anyway, since there's only 2 beds, you're going to have to sleep with the kid, and me and Shizune will take that bed," Tsunade replied. Mocha said, "I understand," as she pulled the rosario out of her pocket and put it back on Tsunade, and Shizune watched in awe as her hair turned pink. Her claws turned into regular fingernails, her eyes turned green with regular pupils, and her chest reverted to a tiny C cup. "What the hell just happened to you?" Tsunade and Shizune both cried out simultaneously, their eyes wide. In an attempt to hide the fact that she is a vampire and that the rosario is a seal that prevents her from being a vampire, Mocha said, "You see, this rosario holds my other personality in check," with a less solemn expression and a slightly higher-pitched voice than before. "So you have another version of yourself that the seal there prevents you from having? Is it a bloodline ability, I wonder?" Shizune inquired. "It definitely is a bloodline ability," Mocha said, nodding her head angrily. Tsunade turned off the lights and said, "That's one strange bloodline, but whatever, I'm tired, so good night," before she and Shizune lay down to sleep. Even though Mocha blushed a little from sharing a bed with Naruto, she simply shook her head, beckoned him closer, and used him as a teddy bear before saying, "Good night, Naruto-kun," and retiring to her own bed. "Is that what you're trying to tell me, Jiraiya?" Yesterday, a young girl with silver hair and red eyes created that menacing demonic aura. She defeated the Gobi without even trying. The Hokage leaned back in his chair and smoked his pipe as he asked. "Yup, that's about what happened. What about this young boy you said you saw?" "Well, like I said, I didn't get a good look, so I can't really give you a good description, Sarutobi-sensei," Jiraiya murmured. After saying, "Then I want you to keep a close eye on these two, and when you find out their identity, come and tell me." Now dismissed, Jiraiya vanished as the Hokage dismissed him and set out to locate the 2 individuals he had seen the day before. Is leaving Naruto-kun alone really acceptable? As Mocha and Naruto departed before Tsunade and Shizune awoke, they did not pay Tsunade as the other Mocha had promised, and Naruto instead chose to leave a letter explaining his decision to not reimburse her. Naruto replied, "Yes, it is alright, Mocha-san, because since she didn't help me she gets no money," and Mocha simply nodded as they left the city and made their way to the water country. Flashback. Where am I? When Naruto woke up and began to cuddle with the pillows more, he noticed that the pillows smelled like Mocha. "Well, wherever I am, they sure have soft pillows," he said sleepily. "What gives these their familiar scent?" When Naruto finally opened his eyes fully and backed up a bit, he saw that he was sleeping in the same bed as Mocha and that what he thought were pillows were actually her chest. After that, he tried to get up as fast as he could, but when he did, he discovered that Mocha's arms were around him and supporting him securely. Naruto sighed and began gently shaking Mocha's shoulder to get her to wake up. "I suppose I might as well wake her up and get some answers about what happened yesterday," he said. Naruto gave her a gentle shake and said, Mocha-san, it's time to wake up." "What?" Mocha said sleepily. Naruto, still lying on his side with only a foot or so separating him from Mocha, said quietly, "It's 8 a.m., Mocha-san, and I would like you to tell me what happened yesterday." Mocha simply nodded as she sat up and released Naruto. "So, how did we end up here, and what was wrong with that other version of you?" Naruto, who was also sitting up, asked. Mocha pointed to the rosario on her chest and said, "Well, Naruto-kun, I'm a vampire. And this rosario is a seal that keeps my true powers in check as well as the other version of me. So that's why you changed and kicked Ryuk's ass when I took off that rosario," Naruto replied. "Yup, but the other version of me is completely different person. We're basically 2 different people sharing the same body," Mocha replied. "Alright, tell me how we got here." "Well, I took you to Tsunade-san after Ryuk was defeated because I thought she could help when she refused. I told her you could pay her, and she changed her mind. She didn't help you at all. She just said that you would be healed by morning thanks to your healing abilities." Naruto wrote a brief note and tapped it on Tsunade's head, saying, "In that case we're leaving now before they wake up, so I don't have to pay her since all she did was absolutely nothing." As Mocha entered the restroom, she said, Okay Naruto-kun, but just give me 5 minutes." Final flashback. Tsunade angrily exclaimed from her hotel room, "Naruto Kuchiki, I'll get you for not paying me." Naruto smirked and said, "It seems Tsunade-san found my note," while Mocha simply turned to face the hotel where the yell originated. "Why are we going to Water Country, Naruto-kun? Water Country has the least populated areas, so it is unlikely that I will be disturbed while I train to achieve Bankai or the second release of my sword, and during this time I will also be laying low or hiding, so hunter ninja and bounty hunters can't find me and disturb me, and that is why I wish to stay in Water Country for the next 2 years and train, and I would like you to come with me," replied Naruto as she glanced at her. Mocha grinned and said, "Of course, I'll come with you, Naruto-kun. But, Naruto-kun, I haven't had breakfast yet, so, sorry," she said, kneeling down and putting her arms around Naruto's neck, biting him and sucking his blood. As he stood there with his head cocked to the right and allowed Mocha to suck his blood, Naruto thought, "I can't believe I'm actually starting to enjoy this," and his face blushed slightly. Layter 2 weeks after arriving in Water Country, Naruto and Mocha were slowly growing closer to one another. Naruto stopped walking and turned around, saying, "Mocha-san, it seems we have a visitor, so why don't you come out now?" Mocha followed suit. Saku Kitsune, a man with silver hair and spikes, said, "You truly do live up to your reputation." Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sannin, "What do you want?" Naruto asked, his face and voice typical of an Itachi. "This kid's not ordinary, and why does he resemble Itachi Uchiha so much?" Jiraiya wondered. Naruto said, "I'll ask you again, what do you want?" "Not much, but I would like to know if you are the real Naruto Uzumaki." As he and Mocha prepared to depart, Naruto remarked, "Yes, I am, and I will be returning to the Leaf within 2 years to take my clone's place. Now if that is all, I will be going." Jiraiya interrupted Naruto to say, "Wait, I have one more question." "What is it?" "Did you participate in the massacre in Uchiha?" With a furrowed brow, Jiraiya inquired. "Yes, my brother Itachi and I were responsible for the Uchiha massacre since the clan intended to seize control of the Leaf Village by eliminating the Hokage. With the exception of Sasuke Uchiha and Uchiha Makoto, they were spared because they were unaware of the plan. So that's why it happened. In that case, you and Itachi should be praised as heroes, but we both know that's not going to happen. But I can probably get Sarutobi-sensei to take you of the bingo book while having him state that it was a mistake about you killing the clan, and you didn't really do anything, so you won't be jumped when you come back to the Leaf Village. But as for Itachi, he's going to still have to take the blame. And what do you mean by, my brother?" Jiraiya said. As he and Mocha resumed their stroll, Naruto remarked, "I mean that I and Itachi have the same mother, and it's not Makoto Uchiha also. Thank you for taking me out of the bingo book. It will make things easier when I return to the Leaf Village." I suppose that explains why he resembles Itachi so much. In addition to their similar personalities, hold on a second. Kushina slept with Fugaku Uchiha. Before he vanished, Jiraiya screamed as he was leaving to inform the Hokage. Mocha turned away and said, "I was wondering if you would like to go to dinner with me, Naruto-kun, since it's getting late." "For the past 2 weeks, haven't we been having dinner together?" Naruto remarked as he continued to move. "I thought that this could be more of a date like dinner," Mocha replied. "I don't mean to offend, but don't you seem a bit too old for me?" In his cool tone, Naruto asked. Mocha stopped walking at that point and lowered her head as a small, dark cloud passed over her. "I know you won't get any older than you are now, so I'm just kidding, Mocha-san, which is similar to how I will stop getting older once I'm 18 or 21, so yes, I would like to go on a real date with you," Naruto said, turning to look at Mocha and grinning slightly. Mocha ran up to Naruto and gave him a bone-crushing hug after hearing what he had to say, and she couldn't help but smile. Naruto said, "Mocha-san, could you, please, put me down, I can't breathe," as he became pale. Mocha put Naruto down and apologized, saying, "Sorry, Naruto-kun, I didn't mean to hurt you." Naruto said, "Don't worry about it, Mocha-san," and they resumed their silent stroll. As they reached a pleasant, medium-sized cottage tucked away in the forest, about a mile from the village and concealed in the mist, Naruto remarked, "It seems we finally arrived." The cottage had 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, and a living room. "Naruto-kun is a wonder," with excitement, Mocha exclaimed. Naruto said, "I'm glad you like it, because we will be spending the next 2 years here," as he and Mocha entered the modestly sized cottage. "When are we going to go on our date, Naruto-kun?" Mocha sat down on the couch in the living room and asked. Naruto said, "Well, it's 6:30 now, so we might as well get going, and get supplies," and made his way to the exit. Mocha blushed a little and said, "We just got here and now we have to go back out again, but at least this we are going on a date." Mocha was eagerly examining every shop and eatery as they entered the Mist Village. Mocha-san, where would you like to go? As the sun began to set and they strolled through the Mist Village, Naruto asked. How about over there? She pointed to what appeared to be the best restaurant in the neighborhood as she spoke. Very well, Mocha-san. They observed that the restaurant was unquestionably reserved for the upper classes as soon as they entered. A man to Naruto's right who appeared to be the restaurant's owner remarked, what an honor it is to have a noble like you in my restaurant, Kuchiki-sama. It appears that even in the Mist Village, people are aware of me, Naruto reflected. Naruto said, I am here on a date, as he turned to face Mocha. He must have a thing for older women, thought the proprietor prior to responding, I see, but she needs to be in something more formal for my restaurant, but we do have brand new kimonos in the back that she could wear, if you don't mind buying one for her, that is. Naruto said, she can have anything she picks, while escorting Mocha to the rear to select a kimono. So, Naruto-kun, how'd I look? Mocha asked, grinning as she spun around in her well-fitting emerald kimono with pink lining. Naruto said, you look amazing, Mocha-san, as he grinned and blushed slightly at her. Mocha, still wearing the kimono and carrying her other clothes in a bag, remarked, I had a lot of fun on our date, Naruto-kun, as they made their way back to their house. Naruto remarked, I did to Mocha-san, as they entered their house before Naruto could reach his room. Mocha leaned down in front of him and kissed him quickly on the cheek before rushing to her room. Naruto merely stood there for a moment, grinning and blushing slightly, before heading to his room to sleep as well. The following morning, Naruto discovered that, in addition to the fact that she wasn't Mocha, there was an older girl in his bed, and that she was staring at him with just an inch separating them. Who is this fuck? Naruto shouted in his head, but he maintained his typical cool-headedness and composure outside. As Naruto looked at a girl with purplish-blue hair about 6 inches past her shoulders, light blue eyes with a darker blue in place of her pupils, a lollipop in her mouth, a white sweater with blue sleeves, a light brown miniskirt similar to Mocha, mid-thigh length socks with a purple and dark purple pattern, a medium C cup, and a height of roughly 5 feet 10 or 5 feet 11, he said. Excuse me, but who are you, and why are you in my bed? My name is Mizore Shirayuki, and you're even cuter in person, Naruto-kun, Mizore remarked, looking bored. Thank you, but tell me how you know me and why you're here, Naruto inquired. Mizore got out of bed and dragged Naruto with her. I've seen you in the newspaper a few times, and I noticed that you have the same sad and lonely eyes I do, so why don't we go to the lake, Naruto-kun? She said. Hold on, at least allow me to change first. As he was pulled from his bed, Naruto uttered those words. Mizore simply stood there and stared at Naruto after he said that. Will you please give me some privacy? Following Naruto's statement, Mizore simply left the room and entered the living room. Mocha was eating cereal in the kitchen, wearing her go-to oversized t-shirt for sleeping in, and she was in a cheerful mood as usual when she noticed an odd girl emerge from Naruto's room and exclaimed, Who are you? And why were you in Naruto-kun's room? How did you even get into his room? With a slackly expression, Mizore said, I'm Mizore Shirayuki. I was in Naruto-kun's room because I wanted to be, and I snuck in, taking the lollipop out of her mouth and replacing it after she was done speaking. Because this strange girl was acting as though what she had done was not a big deal, Mocha just started to get a little red with rage. Now that you're up to Mocha-san, would you like to accompany me and Mizore-san to the lake? As he emerged from his room, Naruto asked. I'd adore meeting Naruto-kun. After Mizore ran into her room and changed, Mocha grabbed Naruto's hand and glared at him with daggers. As they began dragging Naruto to the lake and glaring at one another the entire way there, Mizore simply glared at her as well and silently accepted Mocha's challenge by latching her hand with Naruto's. As Mocha sat on the grass and watched Naruto and Mizore skip rocks in the lake, she thought, she's acting too flirty with Naruto, and she tickled her forehead. Have you noticed Naruto-kun? As she placed her head on top of Naruto's and hugged him from the back, Mizore remarked, it skipped 9 times. Naruto could only sigh before responding, Mizore-san, I really need to get started with my training. Naruto, why don't you just remain here with me? Mizore held Naruto a little closer and said, or is it just that you don't want to stay here with me? She's too close, Mocha thought, growing increasingly irate. Before Naruto could finish, he felt a chill around his stomach as he looked down, his eyes widened in surprise as a layer of ice began to cover his stomach from Mizore's hands. That's not it, it's just, he said. How are you treating me? As he tried to break free from her hold but discovered that she was simply holding him too tightly, Naruto narrowed his eyes and asked her. Mizore remarked, If you're frozen in a block of ice you will never be able to leave, as the ice began to envelop him more quickly. You idiot! When the voice from the Rosario said, you are so preoccupied with your own thoughts that you don't even notice what's happening to Naruto. Mocha looked up to see that a thick layer of ice had covered half of Naruto's chest and his stomach. She immediately ran to help him. What's the reason behind this? Naruto looked at Mizore, who was standing in front of him, and asked. Because I'm lonely, and if I freeze you, you will be only mine. Mizore paused for a moment before continuing. Leave Naruto alone. Mocha yelled as she shoved Mizore into the lake, but before Mizore fell, the lake turned to ice. She simply got back up as she hit it, and her hands changed into larger claw-like ice hands and her hair turned to ice as well. I am a snow women type demon, and I can freely control ice, Mizore declared as she stabbed Mocha with a couple of ice-like daggers. When Naruto noticed the daggers flying in Mocha's direction, he broke through the ice that surrounded him and tackled her to the ground. However, in the process, he ended up removing the Rosario from her chest. He also noticed that the blue sky turned crimson, the clouds turned black, the sun was replaced by a crimson shining moon, and the area was filled with a familiar yet overwhelming demonic aura. Get off me, Naruto, said the eerie voice of the crimson-eyed, silver-haired Mocha with pupil slits. After noticing that he was straddling Mocha's waist, Naruto immediately removed himself to prevent her from becoming even more irate. Mocha said, so you're the reason I was called out, huh, as she went up to measure. As she continued to hurl ice shards at Mocha, Mizore said, stay out of my way, but she simply vanished. Mocha said, know your place, as she emerged behind Mizore and kicked her in the back, causing her to fly through just 2 dense trees because she had resisted. So, Mocha-san, will you be staying for a while or are you returning to the Rosario? As he placed the unconscious Mizore over his right shoulder, Naruto posed the question. Mocha repressed her demonic aura and said, I think I'll stay out for a while, as she passed Naruto and headed for the house. Naruto merely sighed before beginning to follow Mocha home as well. Mocha said, so Naruto, I want you to let me out twice a week, as Naruto laid Mizore down on his bed. So you want me to let you out once a week so you can stay out for 2 days, then let the other Mocha come back for 5 days, Naruto replied. Correct, Mocha said again. Given that Mizore-san won't be up for at least an hour, what do you want to do, Mocha-san? Mocha blushed slightly as she said, how about we have a spar, and you can call me Mocha-chan if you want, and Naruto simply followed her out the door, blushing slightly too at the thought of referring to Mocha in such a nice way. After an hour after the fight, Mocha said, you're stronger than I expected, Naruto, as she entered the house without even having any dirt on her clothes. Naruto entered after her, appearing to have just had the shit kicked out of him. Thanks, he said. Mizore said, so you're finally back, as she emerged behind Naruto. Before turning around and exclaiming, Mizore-san, you're finally up, Naruto thought, she definitely knows how to make a surprising entrance. Mizore looked at Naruto hope intently and said, hi, and I wanted to know if you could forgive me for trying to freeze you. It's just that I'm so lonely, and I don't want to be anymore, so could I stay here with you, Naruto-kun? Naruto said, I forgive you, and of course you can stay. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Mizore grinned. Later of a year and a half. As he lay down in the field where he was training, Naruto declared, I've finally learned how to manifest Ka-san into the real world, which means the real training for Bankai can finally begin. Mizore exclaimed, well done, Naruto-kun, as she and Mocha, the pink-haired Mocha, came out from behind a tree. With his eyes closed, Naruto uttered, so what are you two doing here? Mocha said, we wanted to talk to you about our relationship, as she fidgeted and turned away. When Naruto's eyes finally opened, he said, what about it? I mean, the 3 of us are good friends. Mizore stated, we want to be more than just friends, Naruto. Naruto scowled and remarked, I can't choose between the 2 of you, so I don't know what you expect me to do. We already knew that, and that's why we've been discussing the idea of sharing you, and we have agreed that that would be our best option, and since we've known each other for a year and a half it makes sharing you a little more bearable, Mocha said with a sigh. Naruto remained in his lying position and said, if that is what the 2 of you really want, then I'll agree, but only if the other Mocha has agreed to this arrangement as well. She did agree, but it took a lot of coaxing, and she isn't happy with our arrangement, but she agreed nonetheless, Mizore said as she appeared on Naruto's left side, also lying down. Naruto sighed as he felt Mocha lie down beside him on his right. The way she always just appears someplace is a mystery that even I can't figure out, he thought. So what are we supposed to do now? We've already been going out on dates with each other and talking with each other over the past year and a half. The only things we haven't done yet that couples do is kiss, and other intimate things. said Naruto again with his eyes closed. Mizore said, I think we can fix that, as she and Mocha approached Naruto and simultaneously planted a kiss on his lips when Naruto saw Mizore kissing him on the left side of his lips and Mocha kissing him on the right. His eyes widened in disbelief. He simply wrapped an arm around each of their backs, closed his eyes, and grinned as he thought, got to love my life. Mocha and Mizore couldn't resist pushing each other away as they kissed Naruto so that one of them could have him all to themselves. Although they had agreed to share him, this didn't mean they wouldn't occasionally fight for his affection or become envious of one another because they weren't particularly happy about it. However, they knew he wouldn't choose between them, so they had to learn to live with sharing him. 6-month layout as Naruto, Mocha, and Mizore walked to Tanazuka town to meet the group of Leaf Ninja who were supposed to accompany them to the Leaf Village. He thought, it's unbelievable that 2 years have gone by already, but at least I've finally mastered Senbon Sakura's Bankai form, but I still haven't heard Kyuubi's true name yet. At this point, Naruto was around 5 feet 1, and dressed similarly, but in black. He wore a white robe with the kanji for Sakukitsune on the back and a pink fox with red eyes underneath. Go back to 2 days ago. After giving him a letter, the Hokage's secretary said, Hokage-sama, this letter has been personally addressed to you, and left the room. The Hokage read the letter and said, so you have finally decided to come back, Naruto. However, as he read it, he couldn't help but laugh and drop the letter on his desk because it said, Hokage-sama, I would like to request that you send me a ninja team to escort me to the Leaf. Send the team to Tanazuka town and tell them to meet me in the ramen stand, located on the far western side of the town. Consider this an A-class mission just in case some ninja come after me looking to take the bounty on me that the Stone Village put on my head. Seeing as I've finally come out of hiding, have the team leave the day you receive this letter, and I'll pay the price of the mission when I get there. The Hokage said, I can't believe you forgot where the village is, as his laughter finally subsided. Kaya, please send in Maida Guy's team, I have a mission for them, the Hokage told his secretary. Of course, Hokage-sama, Kaya replied. After about 20 minutes, Maida Guy and his genin team were revealed when the Hokage's door suddenly flew open. Hokage-sama, what youthful mission do you have for us today? Cried a tall man with black hair in a bowl cut, a green jumpsuit, orange leg warmers, and large bushy eyebrows. Yosh, what is the youthful mission? A miniature Maida Guy yelled. The Hokage glanced at the bigger one first, then the smaller one. Yes, well, hello Guy and Lee, he said. Hello Hokage-sama, said a young girl with brown hair in 2 buns, dressed in green cargo pants and a pink Chinese-style shirt. Hello Tenten, the Hokage had said. Good morning sir, said a boy with lavender eyes without pupils, black hair that reached his mid-shoulders, and a beige shirt and black shorts. Good morning to you too, Neji, the Hokage called out. Now, your mission is an A-ranked escort mission. You will meet the client in Tanazuka town in the ramen stand on the far western side of town, 2 days from now, and before I forget, your client is Naruto Kuchiki, the Hokage stated before dismissing them. Final flashback. Looks like we are finally here, Naruto-kun, Mizore remarked as she and Mocha embraced Naruto as they reached Tanazuka town. Naruto gave them one of his infrequent, warm smiles that were only given to them. I know that both of you are nervous about going to the Leaf Village and being around so many humans, but don't worry because I will protect you, since there is nothing more important to me than you two, he said. Mocha grinned at him and said, that kinder side of you is one of the reasons why we fell in love with you, Naruto-kun, as she and Mizore clung to him further. As the 3 of them entered Tanazuka town and got ready to meet their Leaf Ninja escorts, Naruto remarked, and I fell in love with you too because you were my first real friends aside from my older brother, so anyway, it's finally time to start our new lives in the Leaf Village. Naruto sat in the ramen bar, his eyebrows twitching, and he said, this is getting ridiculous. We've been waiting here for the Leaf Ninja for the past 3 hours. Ramen bar on the east side. Neji turned to face Lee and Guy Sensei and twitched his eyebrows. I thought I told you too that the client is in the far west side ramen bar, and not the far east one, he said. Guy exclaimed, to the west side ramen bar. Lee, into the air. Lee saluted and exclaimed, Yosh, Guy Sensei, as he and Guy ran to their new location. Tenten's eyebrows twitched as she asked, isn't west the other way, Neji? Yes, it is Tenten, Neji growled, starting to clench his fists in frustration and rage. Ramen bar on the west side. Naruto repeatedly chanted, must not kill, Leaf Ninja, as his hand crept toward the sword slung over his right shoulder. Mocha picked Naruto up and placed him in her lap, placing her head on top of his and one arm around his waist to keep him there. She said, it's okay. Naruto-kun, just calm down, and she started to stroke his whiskers because she knew that was the best way to soothe him. Naruto said, "Mocha-chan, you know how much I hate it when you treat me like a child," but before he could say anything more, the amazing feeling he got whenever someone touched his whiskers took over. All he could do was close his eyes and lean back into Mocha's chest as he began to purr softly. Mizore looked at Naruto with interest and remarked, "I didn't know that would happen to Naruto-kun if you pet his whiskers." Mocha sat quietly and relished the moment, saying, "I only found out by accident about 2 months ago. That is, until she noticed that Naruto had vanished. She then looked to her left to see that Mizore had taken Naruto away from her and was treating him in the same manner as she had just been doing." Mocha screamed, "Mizore, give Naruto-kun back," as she attempted to reclaim Naruto. In her typical bored tone, Mizore warned Mocha not to take him away, saying, "Be quiet or you'll wake him up." When Naruto-kun's sleeping like this, he really does look like a child. It makes me feel weird whenever I see him like this because I always realize that I'm together with someone so much younger than me. It really makes me feel like some kind of pedophile, Mocha said, grinning slightly as she observed that Naruto was actually sleeping through the side of his hair. As she continued to stroke Naruto's whiskers, Mizore remarked, "We are demons, Mocha. So age doesn't really matter to us seeing as we stop aging once we hit 18 or 21. After saying, "I guess you're right," Mocha and the Mizore herd yelled, "Young Naruto Kuchiki, we're your youthful leaf ninja escorts," as Guy entered the tiny ramen restaurant. Mizore merely scowled at Naruto as she began to enjoy having Naruto sit on her lap, and I was just starting to become relaxed, Naruto said as he opened his eyes and left her lap. As he walked in front of Guy and observed the group, Naruto remarked, "It's about time you ninja showed up." He could only think, he has no sense of fashion and neither does his little clone, but at least the other two are fine. The three genin recalled what their sensei had told them at the Leaf Village gates as they saw Naruto. Flashback, now I want all of you to understand that this is an A-ranked mission, which means we will probably run into enemy ninja, and if we do, just remember our objective is to protect Naruto Kuchiki, while we escort him to the Leaf Village from Tanazuka Town, which should take 2 days to get there and 2 days to bring him back, making this a short 4-day mission. Understood? Said Guy to his genin. Guy-sensei, why would someone like Naruto Kuchiki need our help, considering he is supposed to be some prodigy among prodigies? Neji replied. Because Neji, he was marked down as a S-ranked criminal of the Stone Village at the age of 9.5 for killing an Anbu captain and his teammate, while letting the third member go for some unknown reason, which means people are looking for him in order to collect the large bounty that the Stone Village put on his head, Guy said with a seriousness as he gazed at the visages of his genin. If this Naruto person is truly as strong as you say, Guy-sensei, then I wish to defeat him and prove hard work can beat a prodigy, said Lee. While Tenten and Guy scowled at Neji's remarks to Lee, he started to leave with the other members of the team. You will never be able to beat someone like Naruto Kuchiki, Lee, because he is like me, a true prodigy, Neji said. I will show you, Neji, that someone like me, someone who has to work hard for his strength, can beat a prodigy like you or this Naruto Kuchiki, Lee thought as he began to walk with them. Final flashback, Lee approached Naruto and said, I'm Rock Lee, and I want to fight you, Naruto Kuchiki. However, Naruto cut him off before he could say anything more. Naruto looked at Lee and remarked, I don't want to fight you, Lee-san, because you are not worth the time. But why? Lee objected, if you really want to fight me so badly, the Chunin exams will be in Konoha in 6 months, and during that time I will fight you, but not any sooner, Naruto said as he gazed at Lee. Lee saluted and yelled, I accept your challenge, Naruto Kuchiki. Shall we get going then, considering that it is getting late, Neji replied. Guy poured out, then let us get going, my youthful students and client, and made his way to the door. Looking at the only 2 people he cares about besides his big brother, Naruto declared, it's time to go. Mizore-chan and Mocha-chan, at least for the time being. Tenten couldn't resist asking, are they your sisters, Naruto-san? As Mizore and Mocha approached. No, they are my girlfriends, Naruto declared before leaving the ramen bar, Mizore and Mocha trailing behind him. Tenten exclaimed, he is, 2 girlfriends. Before lowering her head and expressing sadness as she asked, why are all the good-looking rich guys always taken? Neji said, Tenten, are you coming? As she popped her head through the open door. Tenten said, yes, as she made her way to the door with a dejected expression. Naruto and the others left Tanazuka Town a day and a half ago, and they were only 4 hours away from the Leaf Village, which would have allowed them to reach it at around 8 o'clock in the evening. Tenten and Neji were a little anxious about being around Naruto, Mocha, and Mizore because they all had a weird gut feeling that there was something inhuman about the 3 of them. As a result, Nobody really talked much during the trip, not even Lee and Guy. Tenten finally broke the awkward silence by asking, so, how long have you known Naruto-san Mocha-san? Looking at Tenten, Mocha stated, I and Mizore-chan have known Naruto-kun for the past 2 years, as they made their way to Konoha. Tenten asked inquisitively, wow, that's pretty long, but how long have you and Mizore been going out with him? She felt a shiver of coldness and turned to see what was causing it. Tenten squeaked a little in surprise as she saw Mizore behind her, thinking, how the hell did she get behind me? I mean, I just saw her a good 4 meters ahead of me. We've been together for 6 months now, but in that time we've only kissed him once, as well as him only saying that he loves us once, which was a day and a half ago in Tanazuka town, Mizore said as he looked at Tenten. That's true, Naruto-kun has been pretty distant with us over the last 2 years, but I think it's only because I and Mizore kind of rushed him into a relationship with the two of us, and he really didn't know what to do in a relationship with us considering he was only 11 at the time, Mocha said with that expression. But you forget that Naruto-kun has been opening up to us more over the last couple of weeks, considering he's been telling us about his life before he met us, and also telling us what his big brother was like, Mizore said as he looked at Mocha. Mocha, who had just realized that Naruto had been getting closer to them and opening up more, asked excitedly, I haven't even really noticed that. You think he's finally starting to become closer to us, Mizore-chan? Mizore simply nodded in agreement. Wait a minute. You both look like you're at least 17 and you're saying you practically forced an 11-year-old kid into a relationship with you. What are you, a couple of pedophiles? Tenten yelled. We are not pedophiles, exclaimed Mocha and Mizore, their faces flushed with embarrassment. However, when they noticed 4 stone ninja emerge from the forest some 25 or 30 feet away, their conversation came to an abrupt stop. Naruto Kuchiki, so you've finally come out of hiding after 2 years, a ninja wearing a stone headband said as he and 3 other ninjas emerged from the forest on the left side of the dirt road. Guy and his group leapt in front of Naruto and the 2 girls as soon as they saw that. If you leaf ninja can please move out of the way and let us kill the kid behind you. You won't have to worry about dying today, the rock ninja replied. They all rushed off to their targets after Guy yelled, you 3 just stay behind me and my team, we'll take care of this. Now, Lee, Tenten, and Neji. I want you 3 to take the 2 Chunin on the right and I'll take the 2 Junin on the left, now go. As his group charged forward, the same stone ninja yelled, so you want to fight, then fine. Guy yelled, Leaf Hurricane, as he emerged between the 2 stone Junin and struck one of them in the face. With Lee's group they scattered as they pursued their assigned targets. Lee, you take the one on the left and Tenten you're our long-range support, Neji said. With NEIJI, so I'm facing a brat, huh? Well, this shouldn't take long, the stone Chunin smirked. While Tenten hid in a tree and prepared to provide long-range support for Neji and Lee, Neji said, it would be in your best interest to not underestimate me, activating his Byakugan and adopting the graceful fist stance. Great Mud Slide Jutsu, the ninja yelled as Neji began to be pushed backward by the mud-covered ground beneath him. Fuck it. Neji snarled as he stumbled and saw the stone ninja approaching him brandishing a kunai. Tenten then suddenly launched a kunai, striking the stone ninja in the head. Neji thought, mud clone, as he watched the stone ninja turn to mud and jumped out of the mud slide jutsu and onto normal ground. He used his Byakugan to detect that the ninja was beneath him and waited for the ideal moment to leap out of the way. Now, Neji thought as he leapt out of the way of the headhunter jutsu used by the ninja. The stone ninja emerged from the ground, appearing to finally take things seriously, so you're a little better than I expected, but don't start getting cocky, kid, because the real battle is starting now, he said. With Lee, why am I always the odd one out? As he examined Lee, the stone ninja thought. I'll begin if you don't want to, as he charged his opponent and struck him in the face with a right hook, sending the stone ninja reeling a few yards to the left. Lee uttered those words. As the ninja stood up and wiped the blood from his lip, he growled, you surprised me with that speed of yours, kid, but you won't get another lucky shot like that in again. Lee said, we shall see, as he assumed the iron fist position. Using Guy had already dealt one of the Junin a blow to the chest while the ninja's ribs pierced his own heart and lung. Earth-style Earth Dragon Bomb, you bastard! The Junin yelled, and after completing the necessary hand seals, a dirt dragon head emerged from the ground and began hurling earth bombs at Guy. However, Guy was too quick and avoided them as he ran in the direction of the stone ninja. How is he so quick? Damn it! Thought the ninja, as he frantically dodged Guy's punches, but each one was getting closer until Guy grabbed him while jumping into the air, and he started spiraling to the ground, and right before impact Guy shouted out, Primary Lotus. Guy walked away from the tiny crater-sized hole his attack had created. Now that that's taken care of, let's see if my students need any help, he said. With NEIJI. You tiny brat. The stone ninja yelled. Neji just hit his arm with a strong Juken strike that rendered it inoperable. Now Tenten. When Neji yelled, Tenten was on the right of the line, racing toward the stone ninja through a hail of shuriken and kunai. By the time he turned around, it was too late, and he was falling to the ground with the shuriken and kunai in his back. With Lee, the stone ninja said, "Looks like I got you now, kid," after catching Lee in a quicksand-style jutsu. Lee declared, "As long as I can still breathe, this fight is not over," at which point he threw all of his chakra into his legs and leapt out of the swift sand. When Lee jumped away from the stone ninja, he only confused him until he looked down and saw the explosive tag on his chest. Before he could remove it, it exploded. "Now let's finish this," Lee said as he vanished and reappeared in front of the ninja, attacking him with a flurry of punches and kicks. Lee said, "Now to go find the others," and hurried away. Guy said, "As expected of my youthful students," while glancing at his reorganized squad. "They were not even a challenge, Guy-sensei," Lee remarked while saluting. Neji stated, "I was hoping for more of a challenge." Tenten stated, "I expected them to be a little stronger too. I suggest we don't look a gift horse in the mouth and just keep going before something else happens," Guy replied. Grimjow said, "And here I was hoping to see some of my nephew's skill, but those idiots just had to get in the way, and after I went through all the trouble of telling the stone ninja where Naruto would be, and even coming all the way out here just to see him fight," as he hid in a tree's shadow and observed Naruto from a distance. Naruto looked in Grimjow's direction and said, "I can see you," barely audible above a whisper. Grimjow smirked before he vanished, thinking, "If this kid can even detect me from such a distance, then Zetsu wouldn't even have a chance in hell with spying on him successfully." Mizore questioned, "Is there something wrong, Naruto-kun?" Naruto turned to face Mizore and said, "No, nothing's wrong. Hey, we should get moving, Mizore-san, Moka-san, and Naruto-san, before we have any more unwanted visitors," Guy said. Naruto simply nodded and started to walk once more, with Mizore and Moka trailing behind him. However, as he was moving, he couldn't help but wonder, "Why are you watching me? Who are you? And why does your chakra feel similar to mine?" Lee said, "We have successfully finished our mission, Yash," as they passed through the Leaf Village's north gate. "I assume you're going to be alright from here, Naruto-san," replied Guy. "Yes, I will be fine," Naruto replied. "We have to report to the Hokage with our successful mission, so hurry up, my youthful students," Guy exclaimed. "Guy-sensei, Yash." As they both hurried to the Hokage's office, Lee gave his famous salute. Naruto stated, "Since your sensei has run off, I'll just give this to you," as he gave Neji an envelope containing the mission's funds. Neji put the envelope in his pocket, pulled out another, and gave it to Naruto. "I also have something for you, Naruto-san," he said. After saying, "Goodbye, Naruto-san, Moka-san, and Mizore-san," Tenten and Neji started running in an attempt to catch up to Lee and Guy. Naruto grinned as he read the letter Neji had given him. "So after 7 years I'm finally back at the beginning of the tale," he said. Looking over his shoulder with Mizore, Moka asked, "What's the letter say, Naruto-kun?" "It's a letter from the Hokage, stating that he has already taken care of telling everyone that knew my clone that it was a fake, and that I'm the real Naruto, and the sensei of my clone's class has also told the students about it being fake, and that they will meet me tomorrow during team formations, so that old monkey took care of what could have been a big hassle for me," said Naruto with a grin. Mizore said, "Don't you have to dismiss your clone, Naruto-kun?" Mizore-chan, "My clone and myself can never come within a 50-mile radius of each other or it will dismiss automatically, and since I've obviously come within a 50-mile radius of my clone, it has already dismissed itself," Naruto said. "Now, what ought we to do?" Moka inquired. "Well, considering it's about 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. we should just go home and get some sleep." "Just where do we live, Naruto-kun?" replied Mizore. Naruto smirked and began to walk away, as Mizore and Moka simply exchanged glances and shrugged before following suit. "I have a feeling you're both going to love where we live," Naruto said. They arrived to a massive estate the size of the Hyuga estate, or perhaps even larger, with 2 stone fox statues on either side of the walkway and a large number of cherry trees in the front yard. Mizore was so shocked that her lollipop fell out of her mouth, and Moka was just staring with wide eyes. Naruto, still grinning, said, "So, do you two like it?" The 2 girls followed Naruto into their new estate-sized house, nodding stupidly. Sitting on his king-sized bed in the master bedroom, Naruto asked, "So which rooms would the 2 of you like?" Naruto didn't look much better because his shocked face was also red. Well, Mizore and I thought we could share this room with you since the bed's big enough for all three of us, Mocha said, blushing. If that is what you want, then it's fine. Mizore entered the room in a light blue nightgown and climbed into bed on Naruto's left. Good, she said. As he left the room, Naruto remarked, I suppose we should change too. He was dressed in boxers and a t-shirt when he returned, and he noticed that Mocha was also dressed in a white replica of Mizore's nightgown. Naruto uttered the words, well good night Mocha-chan and Mizore-chan, before dozing off in the middle. Both girls put an arm around Naruto-kun and said, good night, Naruto-kun, before falling asleep themselves. Using the hoofage, the Hokage sat behind his desk and said, so Guy, what do you think of him? Well, since he never really spoke, I can't say much, but I can say that boy is dangerous, Guy stated as gravely as she could. The Hokage raised an eyebrow and said, how is he dangerous, Guy? Whenever I looked at the kid's eyes, I saw that they held a commanding and piercing gaze, but if you look beyond that you can see that the kid has it in him to kill anyone that gets in his way except for the two girls with him, because I noticed that he always looked at them with a softer gaze, but still all in all I personally think that he has the same look in his eyes as Itachi, and I don't think our village can handle a second Itachi, sir, Guy said. You have to remember, Guy, that Naruto hasn't been around to many people besides those two girls you told me about. Just give him some time and I'm sure he'll soften up a little and make friends, the Hokage replied. If you say so, sir, Guy said, his face doubtful. Iruka had just entered class at the Ninja Academy at 8 a.m. So students, today is the day that you will be placed on your genin teams, Iruka, who had a scar across his nose and was dressed in a typical Chunin outfit, said. The lazy Shikamaru Nara, wearing dark brown shorts, a mesh shirt with a gray shirt open over it, pineapple-style hair, and standard blue ninja sandals, said, Sensei, what about that whole Naruto thing you told us yesterday? Iruka said with a certain expression, I almost forgot about that, Shikamaru, so like I was saying yesterday, the Naruto that you have all known for the last 7 years was a fake, and you will be meeting the real Naruto Kuchiki any moment now. However, he was still interested in meeting the real Naruto and becoming friends with him, just as he was with the clone, because he had grown quite attached to the fake Naruto and learning that he was a phony. Wait a second, are you referring to Naruto Kuchiki, the young child who was classified as a Stone Village S-ranked criminal at the age of 9.5? Sakura Haruno, a pink-haired girl wearing a red dress with cuts on the sides, a white circle on the back, and tight short black bicker shorts on the sleeves, screamed out in shock. Most of the students were interested in what Sakura had just said, but Sasuke Uchiha in particular began to ask himself, if he's that strong, maybe he can teach me something. Iruka said, yes Sakura, that Naruto Kuchiki, but he was interrupted by a knock on the door. Iruka opened the door and revealed Naruto. That must be him now, so everyone, I would like to introduce the famous Naruto Kuchiki, he said. With wide eyes, Sasuke whispered, he looks like Itachi, as he turned to face Naruto. Sasuke quickly averted his gaze from Naruto in an attempt to shake the memory of his older brother Hinata, and at least half of the other girls in the room began to flush as soon as they saw Naruto, thinking, he's hot. Iruka said, it's a pleasure to meet you Naruto-san, and while they shook hands for a moment, there were a lot of whispers going around the room, such as, is he wearing silk? There's no way a snobby rich kid like that is cut out for being a ninja, he's cute, and, I bet he's not as good as they say he is. Naruto-san, could you please sit down? Iruka asked courteously, while I go through the teams, and Naruto simply nodded as he sat down in the far back where nobody else was seated. Now the teams are, the Hokage sat in a chair in a private chamber in his tower, surrounded by a group of Junin, as they all gazed at a crystal ball that displayed the events taking place in the classroom where Naruto was. So the notorious Naruto Kuchiki is that little squirt? With a cigarette in his mouth, a navy blue beard, and hair, Asuma. A tall man of about 6 feet 3 inches with bowed shoulders and the typical Junin attire of blue sandals, said. Yes, he is, and since his powers and abilities are unknown, I would suggest that no one annoys him, because I don't need any of my shinobi getting sent to the hospital because they said the wrong thing or did something stupid like challenge him to a fight, the Hokage replied. Everyone looked at the crystal ball to see what had happened when Kakashi said, I think you might have spoken to late Hokage-sama, with a smile on his face. Sakura Haruno's high-pitched victory scream, now Team 7 is Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Naruto Kuchiki, interrupted Iruka before he could finish, and Sasuke simply turned to face Naruto, who was staring back at him in the same manner as Itachi used to. This was really starting to frighten Sasuke, so he turned his head away from Naruto. Iruka looked at Sakura and said, "Now if all of the interruptions are done, Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akamichi, and Nara Shikamaru make up Team 8 since Team 9 is from last year's circulation, Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, and Shino Aburame make up Team 10 additionally. The top 3 students for this year are Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Kuchiki tied for Rookie of the Year, Sakura Haruno in 3rd place, and Shino Aburame in 2nd. With an angry look on his face, Sasuke protested, "Wait a minute, how could this guy who hasn't even been in the academy be tied with me for Rookie of the Year?" Because Sasuke, Hokage-sama said that it would an insult to Naruto-san if we didn't give him the title along with you because of his reputation and skill. Iruka quietly while contemplating. Does this kid have to blow everything out of proportion? Sasuke smirked confidently and turned to face Naruto. Then I challenge you to a fight, Naruto. And the winner will be the Rookie of the Year and the loser will be the dead last, he said. Before he vanished and reappeared in front of him, Naruto simply gave Sasuke his typical expression of calmness and blankness. What makes you think I would waste my time fighting someone with such inferior skills? Sasuke asked, and the rest of the class was stunned, staring at Naruto with wide eyes and shocked expressions. Even the slothful Nara Shikamaru was staring at the scene with a shocked expression. Naruto's sudden appearance in front of Sasuke, despite the fact that Sasuke was in the middle row and he was seated in the far back of the class, was what shocked everyone, not what he had just said. Sasuke stammered, "Ho, how did you do that?" as he gazed at Naruto in mild surprise because he had never anticipated his speed. Naruto said, "How I did it is not your concern, boy," with a narrowed, "Yes, all you need to know is that I wouldn't fight someone of your level if I do not have to," he said, releasing enough SP to send shivers down everyone's spine, including Iruka's, before he left the classroom, leaving everyone staring at him with a mixture of fascination and mild fear. Iruka stammered, trying to gather himself, "In any way, it's lunchtime class, so be back here in 1 hour." The Hokage sighed and remarked, "Well, that could have gone worse. His speed is incredible. I didn't even see him move myself." Yuhi Kurenai, who was approximately 5 feet 9, had long raven black hair, unusual red eyes, and wore a white dress that appeared to be made of bandages with a mesh shirt underneath. Her right arm had a red sleeve, while her left arm was sleeveless. "So, I'm curious as to why you would put the 2 strongest genin on the same team to San," replied Asuma. The Hokage looked at Kakashi before continuing his story. "Well, Kakashi just kept pestering me earlier today about wanting both Naruto and Sasuke, so I finally caved and agreed to settle the discussion the old-fashioned way," the Hokage said. Flashback on the same day at 5 a.m. The Hokage narrowed his eyes and said, "All right, Kakashi, if you can beat me, I'll give you both of them." Kakashi narrowed his eyes and said, "I accept," as he glanced at the shorter and older Hokage who was standing at least 4 feet away. The Sandaime asked, "Are you ready, Hitaki?" "I was born ready," Kakashi replied. The Sandaime said, "Then so be it," as he and Kakashi entered a fighting stance and thrust their arms in the center of one another while uttering the words, "Rock, paper, scissors, says shoot." Kakashi grinned and said, "Looks like I won, Hokage-sama," given that the Hokage was using rock and he was using paper. The Hokage sighed and said, "All right, you can have them both." Final flashback at the end, the old Hokage said, "And that's what happened, but I still think Kakashi cheated somehow, which made everyone perspire. You'll never know that I used a one-way headband, which is just like a one-way mirror, so I was able to use my Sharingan without you knowing, in order to see what hand sign you were going to use in our little battle. Before you used it, which let me counter you and win," Kakashi thought as he leaned back on the wall and grinned. The Hokage waved his hand dismissively, saying, "Anyway, all of you should probably get going and meet your new teams, so dismissed." Naruto said, "So, I have an hour break for lunch," as he left the academy and began eating a stick of Poke, thinking, "Nisan was right when he told me that Poke is the best." He noticed Mocha and Mizore waiting for him by a tree. With Mocha perched on a swing that was fastened to one of the more robust branches. Mocha questioned Naruto as he approached them, "So how was it, Naruto-kun?" Naruto looked at Mocha and Mizore and remarked, "It went fairly well, except for the fact that I was put on the same team as Sasuke Uchiha and a load, and weak little girl." Mocha was swinging idly on the swing when she said, "Well, how about we just go get some lunch, Naruto-kun, seeing as you only have an hour till you have to meet your sensei. How about we have some ramen? I've heard some people saying that Ichiraku Ramen Bar is the best in town," said Mizore. Naruto said, "Then let's get going," as the 3 of them made their way through the village to Ichiraku. Naruto noticed that many of the men were staring at Mocha and Mizore as they all leaned down to try to peek up their skirts. Naruto was becoming increasingly irritated, as evidenced by the occasional twitch of his eyebrows, until one fool approached Mocha and said, "Hey cutie, why don't you leave this little squirt and come with me?" Mocha grabbed Naruto's hand and walked past him, saying, "I'm flattered, but I'm with Naruto-kun, so if you could please move out of the way." At this point, many people were beginning to watch what was happening, and they all thought, "Isn't that kid the famous Naruto Kuchiki?" Before he grabbed her shoulder and yanked her back so she was facing him again. Before anyone could see, Naruto pulled out his sword and put it by the man's wrist. "If you wish to keep your hand, then I insist that you let Mocha-chan go," he said. Oh, the guy stammered out, of course, as he began to feel a little intimidated by Naruto's piercing blue-slitted eyes. After apologizing to Mocha for the request, he fled as fast as he could in an attempt to get as far away from the frightening child as possible. "Thank you for helping me, Naruto-kun," Mocha said, grinning at Naruto. After Naruto said, "You should know by now that neither you nor Mizore-chan ever has to thank me for helping," the three of them resumed their walk to Ichiraku. When they reached the ramen stand, Naruto said, "So this is the place you were talking about, Mizore-chan." Before they entered and sat down at the counter, Naruto positioned himself between Mocha and Mizore. When the middle-aged ramen chef turned around, his eyes widened before he said, "You're Naruto Kuchiki, the guy Hokage-sama said was the real Naruto. Welcome, so what can I get you three?" he said. As Naruto faced the chef, he said, "Yes, that is true, and I heard that your restaurant has the best ramen in town, so we decided to try it." "So, what would the three of you like then?" the chef smiled. "I'll have the seafood ramen special," Mizore said. "Please make the beef rare." "I'll have the beef ramen special," I inquired, Mocha said, and the chef nodded in agreement. "And I'll have the chicken ramen special," Naruto said. The chef said, "I'll have your orders done soon." Naruto said, "Take your time, I'm not in a rush." The chef simply nodded. Mocha asked bewilderedly, "But Naruto-kun, don't you have to be back in the academy within an hour?" Naruto replied, "Normally yes, but the sensei my team has been given is normally a few hours late, so we have plenty of time," and Mocha simply nodded in agreement. Sakura and Sasuke were sitting in their classroom, where they were supposed to meet their new sensei. They were both furious because they had been there for 2 hours and neither Naruto nor their new sensei had shown up. Sasuke simply sat there calmly, twitching occasionally in frustration as Sakura screamed, "Where the hell are they?" at the top of her lungs. Naruto grinned and remarked, "Looks like we got here just in time," as he noticed a Hitaki Kakashi approaching the academy's entrance. "It's nice to see you again, Naruto. Well, I mean, it's nice to see the real you again also. It seems that you remembered that I like to be a few hours late," Kakashi said, flashing his trademark eye smile as he saw Naruto and two unidentified older girls approaching him. Naruto glanced at Kakashi and remarked, "Yes, it's good to see you again too, Inu-san, and yes, I still remember how you like to be fashionably late." Kakashi looked at Mocha and Mizore and said, "I always liked how described my lateness, but anyway, who are your gorgeous friends?" Mocha and Mizore blushed a little at the compliment. "My name is Akashiya Mocha, and my name is Shirayuki Mizore." Kakashi looked at Naruto and said, "Well, what kind of relationship do these two pretty girls have with you, Naruto?" Naruto stammered, "Well, they're before turning back to face Mizore and Mocha and giving them a silent, "Help me, look." Mizore chose to comply after she stated, "I and Mocha are Naruto-kun's girlfriends." Kakashi exclaimed in surprise, "You have two girlfriends?" But he was secretly thinking, "These two girls have an unusual chakra signature, I better keep an eye on them." Naruto sighed and said, "It's a long story, so just don't ask." Even though Kakashi refrained from asking Naruto any questions, he couldn't help but think, "Lucky son of a bitch," and they all heard a scream that went, "Where the hell are they?" As he, Kakashi, Mocha, and Mizore entered the academy, Naruto remarked, "It seems we should make our presence known before Sakura starts going crazy, and begins destroying the classroom." When Sakura and Sasuke heard footsteps approaching their room, they said, "Hey Sasuke-kun, look, someone's coming." The door then opened, revealing Kakashi, Naruto, Mocha, and Mizore. "Who are those two girls, and where the devil have you two fools been? Those two better not be trying to steal my Sasuke-kun, and what's with pink-haired girl? I'm the only one in Konoha that's supposed to have pink hair." "Cha!" screamed Sakura, looking from Kakashi and Naruto to Mocha and Mizore. Sasuke also couldn't help but be a little curious about whom these two new girls that were hanging around Naruto were, and as he looked at Mizore he couldn't help but think with a slight blush, "She's really cute." Kakashi said, "Well, my first impression of you two is that I think you're a bunch of idiots." So meet me on the roof for introductions, before he vanished in a whirlpool of leaves, followed by Naruto, Mocha, and Mizore vanished in a whirlpool of snow. Mocha vanished in a whirlpool of flames, and Naruto used a flash step. Sasuke-kun, am I the only one who doesn't know some sort of teleportation jutsu, or is it just me? Sasuke growled, just shut up Sakura, taking into account how annoyed he was at being outdone by Naruto, who did know some sort of quick teleportation technique and he didn't, or at least he thought it was. However, his frown abruptly changed to a smile when he realized that, you may not be the same Naruto that I've known for the last 5 years, and you may even be stronger than me, for now, but a loser is still a loser, and once I get the Sharingan I'll just copy all of your precious techniques if I get the Sharingan. Upon reaching the roof, everyone sat down in front of Kakashi, who was resting against the metal railings of the building. Well, now that we're all here, why don't we start with introductions? Replied Kakashi. Kakashi-sensei, could you maybe going first so we have an idea of what you want us to say? Replied Sakura. Everybody started to perspire as they thought, he didn't tell us anything but his name. Kakashi's smiling smile said, okay. Well, my name is Hitaki Kakashi. I like a lot of things. I don't dislike many things. Dreams for the future, well, I never really thought about it, and as for hobbies, I have lots of hobbies. Naruto was thinking, same old Kakashi. Kakashi remarked, well, you're up next, Pinky, gesturing to Sakura. Sakura looked at Mocha and asked, which one? Kakashi thought, was she really the smartest girl in the academy? And said, the one I'm pouting to? Well, my name's Sakura Haruno and my likes are, glances at Sasuke. My dreams for the future. Glances at Sasuke again while blushing. And my dislikes are Naruto Kuchiki, said Sakura. With a raised eyebrow, Naruto questioned, how could you not like me even though we have never met? Because Sasuke-kun has to share his title of Rookie of the Year with some no-talent loser like you, who probably isn't even half as strong as the rumors say you are, said Sakura. After saying that, Naruto simply leaned over to Mizore and muttered, please restrain me if I ever try to kill her. Mizore, who was also whispering, said, don't worry Naruto-kun, if you ever want her dead I'll do it for you, which only made Naruto smile. Leaning over in the center of them, Mocha asked curiously, what are you two whispering about? We were just thinking of ways to possibly kill Sakura. When Mocha said, that's not very nice Naruto-kun, Naruto simply shrugged, which only made her pout. Naruto remarked, you look really cute when you pout like that Mocha-chan, which only caused Mocha to blush and turn away. Kakashi then said, it's your turn, Naruto. It appears that Naruto did not see Sasuke's introduction, but he likely only said something along the lines of, I will kill Itachi and avenge my clan. Well, I really don't have anything to say to you people, Naruto remarked, grinning mischievously. Sakura's and Sasuke's eyebrows began to twitch violently after he said that, and Kakashi's only thought was, I knew something like that would happen. Anyway, meet me at Training Ground 7 tomorrow because you still have to take your real Genin test, and you only have a 66 chance of passing, Kakashi said with a grin on her face. Sakura yelled in a panic, but we already took our Genin test, Kakashi-sensei. Sasuke and Naruto merely listened with a modicum of interest. Kakashi said, that was just basically a preliminary test, so like I said, meet me at Training Ground 7 at 6:30 tomorrow morning to receive your testo and don't eat breakfast or you'll puke, before vanishing in a whirlpool of leaves. Sakura went into fangirl mode as Kakashi departed, asking Sasuke if he would want to go on a date, and following him around the roof she would repeatedly receive the standard, no, response from Sasuke. Mocha remarked, she's a very persistent girl, as she observed Sakura and Sasuke depart. Mizore said, I'd say more like annoying, as she, Naruto, and Mocha got to their feet. Naruto questioned, so what should we do in order to kill some time? Mocha cheerfully punched the air above her and said, how about we go shopping and take a stroll around the village? Sounds fun, Mizore agreed, grinning. Naruto said, sounds good, and the three of them spent the remainder of the day exploring the village, shopping for new clothes, and doing other random activities. Overall, they had a good time. In addition to being Kakashi's test day, today marked the beginning of Vampire Mocha's, Silver-Haired Mocha, 2-day-per-week release from the Rosario's seal. It was 6 o'clock at Training Ground 7, and Naruto was sleeping while sitting between Mocha's legs. Leaning his head against her left shoulder, and leaning her cheek against his head, she had her arms around his waist, enjoying the quiet and the sensation of holding Naruto, as she only got to spend time with him twice a week because she made sure to cherish the 2 days she spent with him leaning against Mocha's right shoulder. Mizore was also dozing off while seated. After about 20 minutes, Mocha saw Sakura enter the training area. Yes, Mocha is aware of Sakura's identity because, even when she is inside the seal, she can still see what is happening outside of it through Mocha's eyes. When Sakura arrived at the training ground, she couldn't help but wonder where the pink-haired girl from yesterday had gone and who the new silver-haired girl was. However, she decided not to ask any questions because she was so exhausted and didn't care. Instead, she went in search of her Sasuke-kun and eventually discovered him sleeping in a tree about 30 feet from Naruto's current sleeping spot. She then chose to sit beneath the tree and go to sleep herself. At 10 o'clock, 4 hours later, Kakashi eventually arrived. Kakashi sheepishly said, "Sorry guys, but I kind of got lost on the road of life." Sakura screamed, "Liar!" as she stood and pointed wildly at Kakashi. Naruto, Mizore, and Sasuke were all startled out of their pleasant slumber by the commotion. Naruto remarked, "So it looks like you finally arrived, Kakashi," as he, Mocha, and Mizore remained in their current positions because they felt too comfortable to move just yet. Sasuke also leapt from the tree he was sleeping in and approached the group before Kakashi could say anything more. However, a boy who appeared to be around 12 years old, with short black hair, pale skin, a black shirt that ended just above his belly button, black pants, and a short sword behind him that crossed his waist, appeared. "Hello Kakashi-sensei. My name is Sai, and I'm taking Kuchiki-san's place on Team 7, Sai said, passing Kakashi a letter from the Hokage. "And here I was looking forward to having Naruto on my team," Kakashi sighed as he read the letter. "It seems that the Hokage would like to see you and your two girlfriends as soon as possible, Naruto," replied Kakashi. Naruto said, "So, I guess this means we won't be on the same squad after all, Kakashi," and Kakashi simply nodded, his face, or at least the portion that was visible, showing disappointment. Naruto, Mocha, and Mizore then got up and vanished using their signature teleportation techniques, in Naruto's case, just his unrivaled speed. "So I guess now that that's over, we should be getting started with that little test I mentioned yesterday," Kakashi said, grinning. Before he heard a knock on his door, the Hokage was seated at his desk going about his daily business. As he scrawled at the endless paperwork, the Hokage yelled, "Come in." Naruto, Mocha, and Mizore entered the room immediately. The Hokage grinned and said, "Just the three people I wanted to see." As he and the girls sat down, Naruto asked, "What did you want to see us for, Sarutobi-san?" However, since there were only 2 seats, Mocha picked him up and placed him in her lap. Naruto could only sigh and remarked, "You really do like treating me like a child, don't you, Mocha-chan?" Mocha smirked and said, "I'm surprised that you even have to ask," before giving him a slight neck nuzzle that only made Naruto red. At that moment, they heard the Hokage clear his throat to attract their attention, which it succeeded in doing. "Now that I have your attention, I would like to tell you that I and the council have agreed that it would be a waste of your skills to let you do mere D and C rank missions, Naruto, and also since we know that you two girls aren't pushovers either, we've decided to make the 3 of you a genin team, but you will be taking higher class missions even though you're officially ranked as genin," the Hokage said. Along with Mocha and Mizore, Naruto narrowed his eyes and said, "I must admit that I like your decision, but how do you know what Mocha-chan and Mizore-chan are capable of?" "Well, just as we don't really know what you, Naruto, are capable of, we don't really know what they are capable of. However, we can tell that their chakra signatures aren't quite human, which makes us think they are demons. However, we don't really care about that because, from our perspective, we know you are on our side," the Hokage said. "Understandable," Mocha replied. "So, that's why I called you here, and also because I have your first mission, which is a S-class assassination mission," the Hokage said with seriousness. "Who is our target?" Mizore inquired. The Sandame narrowed his eyes and gave the 3 of them a stern look before uttering the words, "The Yondiami Mizukage."